All right. I guess before we do, we'll watch about, we might watch 10 minutes of this. We'll see how far we can make it in this before I want to myself.
Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today I will be unambiguously defending my own honor, because post my appearance on the Hippy Dippy stream, debate, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of different lies have been spread about me, specifically that I was going out of my way to intentionally and deliberately lie about District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and enough is enough. I have watched the tapes, I have gone over what was actually said, and I have found the quote that I was thinking of in my brain when I was talking about people targeting President Trump, and I will be presenting that to you as well as many more things throughout the course of this video. On top of that, as a little bit of a bonus, I will show you that by Destiny's own standard, one of the chief operators, one of the chief smear merchants against me, he in fact deliberately lied to me, again by his own standards. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Oh, give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
So we're going to knock out the Bragg thing first, because I think this is one of the most prominent things that has been spread about me, but I do want to give credit to Connor, of all people, somebody who I haven't really gotten along with in the past, for refusing to buy into the idea that I deliberately lied about this.
He's willing to lie blatantly. Lie. You agree that he lied about what Alvin Bragg said, right? He lied about that.
When I'm making the assertion that somebody is a liar, which I very rarely do, because I think there's all sorts of delusional cope spirals that people put themselves through in order to affirm their presupposed positions. If I go through a lie, then what I have to have, I have to know that they know something, and that they are knowingly choose to say something opposite of what they should in normal circumstance know.
Whatever our differences were in the past, I definitely respect you doing so, and by the way, your faith has been rewarded, because I have the quote, I have what was actually said during the debate, and I will demonstrate beyond any shadow of a doubt that I am being smeared in this regard. But let us go to the point brought up by Destiny in the conversation, where he demands that I present a quote about Alvin Bragg. Let's go to that so you guys can see it.
I think everybody
running on, I'm going to find a crime to prosecute them. That's totally fine.
Did Alvin say that? I'm going to find a crime?
Yeah, he said, what was the exact quote? What you call it? Cam, you were talking about.
I love when he throws it back to Cam. AJW, who's, by the way, a whole fucking YouTube channel, is about him having a background in criminal justice, him living in New York, and him being hypercritical of everything to do with New York crime and bail and Alvin Braggs and Leticia and all these people, right? And you're like, hey Cam, you got the quote on that one, right? Because you brought it up, right? You got the quote on this one, right? Oh my God, that was so brutal. Poor fucking Cam, dude. Holy shit.
Did Alvin say that? I'm going to find a crime?
Yeah, he said, what was the exact quote? What you call it? Cam, you were talking about it earlier, that he said he was running on seeing Trump in court. Now, you guys need to understand the context of this conversation. I will link it in full in the description of this video for you could check it out. But this followed me talking about a hypothetical pro-Trump district attorney running for a state or local office and saying that they will dig into somebody in order to find a crime to charge them with, or something thereabouts. This was not a direct quote, but this is what I was saying in that particular segment. No, I asked you a hypothetical that if this were the case, but they went through the normal legal process, you would be fine with that? That's the standard?
No, because in order to make it comparable, it would have to be like the governor of New York running on trying to...
A local DA that's very pro-Trump, 90% Trump category, finds an official, charges him with the crime that he campaigned on charging him with. They present evidence in front of a grand jury. It's enough for an indictment, very low standard, by the way, and they secure a conviction. That's like totally legit. Now, of course, rather than properly engage with the hypothetical, these people decided that they were going to throw out a challenge related to Alvin Bragg. And at this point in time, I want to highlight something that I've been criticized for, which was tossing it over to
Hold on,
Bragg,
just real quick.
Official
running.
Fine with that? That's the standard?
No, because in order to make it comparable, it would have to be like the governor of New York running on trying to...
A local DA that's very pro-Trump, 90% Trump category, finds an official, charges him with the crime that he campaigned on charging him with.
So, charging him with a crime that he campaigned on charging him with implies that he was trying to say earlier that somebody's running on just like finding any crime. I believe the exact term, I think he used this exact term. I believe he said fishing expedition. I think those were his words. Let me check though. Let me double, quadruple check. Saying if he said it or if I said it. 1 second. Investigation that had already begun, which is a stark contrast to Sean accusing him of saying he's going on a fishing expedition and he was going to prosecute him no matter what. So I'm looking for a single quote. I feel like I'm almost positive that he said fishing expedition first, but I only see it brought up 2 times here. So maybe running on going on a fishing expedition, and it either doesn't show up in the transcript or he said something akin to this and he didn't say the term fishers. I'm pretty sure he said fishing expedition. But the whole point is that Sean is trying to make it sound like this guy's going to invent charges, okay? That he's going to be he's going to run on a guy who he just hates politically and he's going to invent charges for this particular person. That's the entire point that Sean is trying to make. And he can't substantiate that with anything. And even the way that he presents this clip here where he's saying...
They present evidence in front of a grand jury. It's enough for an indictment. Very low standard, by the way.
An indictment is a very low standard. Yes, it is probable cause, I think. Probable cause is for an indictment, okay? But then he goes over...
And they secure a conviction.
The secure conviction is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not a low standard, right? I like how he's very careful to say, well, it's a very low standard for a grand jury indictment. Okay, sure. And then they secure conviction. Okay, that's a 99% like standard, but okay. But we just like kind of like, we go over that
totally legit. Now, of course, rather than properly engage with the hypothetical, these people decided that they were going to throw out a challenge related to Alvin Bragg. And at this point in time, I want to highlight something that I've been criticized for, which was tossing it over to Cam to...
Let me see if I can find where he initially talks about Alvin Bragg's doing this.
Your perspective. I wanted to ask the room, is that an example of an attack on democracy, the political persecution of an opponent, or is it a bunch of hogwash?
I mean, it's an attack on...
Let's start with Sean, because he's been bringing it up.
It's an attack on the norms in our institutions. I mean, trying to remove Trump through the ballot, through the 14th Amendment. I mean, you could argue that that's an attack on our democracy, but our institutions held in those particular cases.
We didn't even get through how stupid because he doesn't know anything about this 14th Amendment stuff, so we didn't even get to any of that. But
I mean, if you look at these different court cases, now granted, I will point out that they're not even all remotely federal. One is even a...
Do you think he's intentionally playing fast and loose with words like this, or is it just his bias shipping scrimming? No. It's very intentional. You'll see. I think I've watched like 5 or 10 minutes of this. It's very intentional how sneaky he is when he inserts language into areas. He's not dumb. He knows exactly what he's doing. But we can listen to this.
But I mean, if you look at these different court cases, now granted, I will point out that they're not even all remotely federal. One is even a local one, the Alvin Bragg case.
I don't know why he says this word so much. I've never heard this before. Somebody referring to a state, like a state is just local. I don't know I don't know if that's a normal thing that some people do, but like he talks about, he'll say like federal charges versus local charges. They would be state charges, but I don't know if it matters that much, but okay.
What you're seeing is weird new interpretations, first time ever used interpretations in order to target Trump. I mean, the Bragg case, where it's a money thing, falsifying business records, those were enhanced to felony charges based on the fact that he was trying to influence the outcome of an election. Now, that's fine that you could say that that's what you're trying to go for, but those falsifications occurred after the election. So it was, even on its face, that's a very odd upgrade to felony charges, especially from a guy who ran on and downgrades more felony charges than anyone in the history of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. You have the Georgia case, where they actually prosecuted, as a test case, widely reported, young thug under the RICO statute in order to have...
I don't know anything about this young thug thing, but given that Sean has lied about basically everything he's brought up so far, he's probably misrepresenting it. Whether or not you want to talk about how the charges were upgraded, I don't actually think the charges were upgraded. Maybe they were, but the important thing was that the statute of limitations was able to extend. If you can show that the crime that he committed was in the commission of another crime, to say that well, it's weird this is happening. Okay, well, is it good or is it bad? Should that not be the case then? Should Trump be able to get away with this particular crime for free? Do we think that he didn't commit a crime? You should argue, if you want to argue good faith, you should argue against the substance of what he's being charged with, not this idea that oh, well, they used a way to extend the statute of limitations and in reality, he should have been charged. Well, okay, well, do you think that it was an illegitimate means of doing so? Was it relatively novel? In this case, I think it kind of was, but it's a pretty novel situation.
Have a case more similar than the Georgia teacher statute in order to prosecute Donald Trump. And it was described by the media as a test case. It's still ongoing. And again, that's very unusual to try a completely different defendant in a new way, just so you have precedent in order to try your political opponent, who, by the way, you ran on prosecuting. So yeah, these are problems, but do they necessarily rise to the point of overthrowing our democracy? No, I think that is a heavy burden. I think it can change the norms. And honestly, I know a lot of people on the left are worried that Trump might win again, and he might follow suit with what the Democrats have demonstrated that they will do when they're in power. So, but I don't think it's a threat to democracy in that same way.
At the end of the day, you still have to identify a crime. You still have to file charges. You maybe convene a grand jury. And you have to convince a jury of your peers. And we're talking about the same DOJ that successfully prosecuted Bob Menendez. They just secured a guilty verdict
in an election year. They're
going after Texas Representative Cuellar. They successfully prosecuted Hunter Biden. So I'm sorry, I'm just not buying this.
Good counter. Good concise counter by Hutch. 100%. Yes.
Yeah, the whole allegation that the Justice Department's been weaponized under Biden is absolutely preposterous. They appointed a special counsel to investigate him. Robert Hur released an incredibly politically damaging report about the president. They bent over backwards to accommodate Trump. Merrick Garland, we have reporting that he dragged his feet for a fucking year with a classified documents case. Didn't the FBI and the National Archives play footsie with Trump behind the scenes, begging him to send the documents back because they didn't want to prosecute him?
Yep.
Cuellar, Menendez, Hunter Biden. Biden could have snapped his fingers and made that case go away. Usually U.S. attorneys resign when a new president enters office because they're political appointees of the previous administration. Biden specifically asked David Weiss, the Trump-appointed special counsel, to remain to investigate his son. Donald Trump would never fucking do that. That was actually an act of superhuman ethics on Joe Biden's part, thus proving his moral superiority over Donald Trump, objectively.
Cool. I'll answer the question too. Yeah, so I don't think it's a threat to democracy. I think it's a bad and corrupt thing to do, but I don't think it's a threat to democracy.
AJ is so good at throwing it over to Cam when he has no response to anything that was said. So all these substantive responses given to AJ's point, he'll never bring up again, and he won't respond to it. And then Cam comes here, who's totally unequipped for this conversation.
Democracy will not cease to exist if you vote for Alvin Bragg, who explicitly the inverse.
Where's the next, Sean?
Attacking
Let's see what we got.
Political.
That they were state even. I actually specifically clarified that they were state, even local officials. Then I went specifically to Alvin Bragg, who is a local official. I talked about them running on these. Like, are you not familiar? I said they weren't all federal. I also want to point out that you're like, Garland dragged his feet. Yeah, it's true. The federal prosecutors all dragged their feet on this up until Trump was announcing he was running for election.
This is a thing that he invented in his brain. I don't know where he gets this from. I don't know where this comes from. Sean, I don't know. There's like a common Republican like schizo talking point. The idea that Trump was not going to run for president again, and then all of a sudden he did, and then everybody started like filing charges and shit. Like all of these investigations weren't actively happening in the background for years before like Jack Smith filed his charges, before New York and Georgia came out with it. It's just, this is like a fantasy delusion talking point. I don't know where this originated from. It might just be his own, but yeah. And there's no evidence or proof of any of this either, right? He has absolutely nothing other than just saying like, well, Trump announced he was going to run, and then they did charges again. It's like everybody knew that Trump was running. In 2020, everybody knew that Trump was going to run. 2024, everybody knew this. This was never a question.
And this is a criticism I've heard from people on the left and the right, that once it was clear that he was going to run, that's when they decided that they were going to prosecute. I mean, Cenk Uygur screams about how Merrick Garland.
There's no evidence of any of that statement whatsoever. But
should have went after him the entire time.
Cenk Uygur is not an authority on any of this. He's another pundit. I don't know why we're even citing to him, but
as soon as he came out of office.
So you are accusing the Biden DOJ of political prosecution, right?
Let me finish my point. So he says he should have went after him as soon as he got out of office. You had the special counsel bring charges on the classified documents case, but it would have been probably less political to go after him early when you weren't sure he was going to run rather than later. But it seems like they went after him and they put all these cases on the ballot. And again, most of it is not federal officials or the special counsel. It's local politicians that ran specifically on prosecuting Trump. And remember, normally you have to have evidence of a crime before you start an investigation, not as a campaign promise, run on finding a crime to charge somebody with.
That's it. There it is. Okay. Don't ever forget. Okay, hold on. We're going to write this down. This is the strong claim that he's going to run away from, okay? And this is what we know he believes this. We all know he believes this, okay? This is the strong claim, okay? What the fuck? I don't need any of this shit.
Of a crime before counsel. It's later, but it seems like they went after him and they put all these cases on the ballot. And again, most of it is not federal officials or the special counsel. It's local politicians that ran specifically on prosecuting Trump. And remember, normally you have to have evidence of a crime before you start an investigation. Not as a campaign promise, run on finding a crime to charge somebody with. But again, even then, like, people did vote for this. I find it to be disgusting. I don't think
They ran specifically on prosecuting Trump. Normally, you have to have evidence of a crime before you begin an investigation. So he's implying they had no evidence of a crime before beginning an investigation, and not as a campaign promise run on finding a crime to charge somebody, implying that there wasn't already an investigation ongoing, okay, which there was when Alvin Bragg came into office, okay, and implying there wasn't already public evidence of a lot of, like, malfeasance happening, right, with the federal cases related to the Stormy Daniels and everything. All of this stuff is already public. So this is the strong claim right here. This is the strong claim.
I think it is a threat to democracy. It shakes the faith in the judicial system, but I don't think it overthrows our democratic system because that's just a heavy burden.
Even if touching on what Cam said, you are saying that the Biden DOJ under Merrick Garland is engaged in political prosecution, right?
I don't know if the special counsel directly answers to Merrick Garland. But
you said that Merrick Garland specifically announced the charges when he knew that Trump was going to be.
No, I said that Merrick Garland didn't charge Trump, and people had criticized him for dragging his feet until Trump ran for president. Could I get clarification
if it was or wasn't political persecution, Sean?
I think there's definitely a political element to it. There's a reason all these cases pop off.
Like he doesn't, and then, so after saying that, he's saying that they ran on finding a crime to charge, Okay, they ran on finding a crime to charge Trump with, and that's okay. So are these political prosecutors like, well, it's an element of it. Like, why not answer the?
It was or wasn't political persecution, Sean?
I think there's definitely a political element to it. There's a reason all these cases pop off.
Okay,
For sure.
Dude,
I
Alvin
never
Bragg,
said
even if he did run on the idea of prosecuting Trump, couldn't he have done it because he thought that Trump committed a crime? Like, this was a criminal case. He got a grand jury. We got a grand jury to agree to an indictment, and then it was tried in open criminal court, and a jury of peers convicted Donald Trump of the crime. So even if it started off as like, well, I hate him politically or whatever, he went through the entire criminal court process in order to secure that conviction at the end of the day. So he
literally admitted that he did.
Hold on, I want to get the standard out. So hold on, I want to get the standard out. If Trump orders an investigation into his political opponents, and then they find a crime when they're digging into him in order to look specifically for a crime, they didn't have evidence before they started the investigation, but they go through the whole trial phase, like
none of what he's saying has happened. And he should know. He does know. He should know, and he probably does know because he talks about this shit so obsessively, right? He does crime. He's from New York. He fixates on crime shit. Like if you search his Twitter timeline for bail, there's like 50 billion things we're complaining about bail in New York, right? Nobody ordered Bragg to go and find a crime. There was already an investigation underway when Bragg was running for DA. Okay. They didn't start the investigation with no evidence whatsoever. There was already evidence from the federal investigations. Like publicly, people were already speaking about this. All of this is just fantastic.
they try whatever political opponent in a county that voted 80% for Donald Trump.
You have to have evidence to get an indictment. You have to need evidence for an indictment.
And then they convict him. Like, that's fine as long as you present some evidence when you're digging.
That would be violative of the norm. That would be violative of the norm that the president doesn't direct the DOJ. That would violate.
District attorneys prosecute. Presidents don't prosecute. That's one of the major differences.
The DOJ serves under the president. Like, this weird idea that
This is beyond retarded. We can't even dig into how stupid this is. The DOJ is under the president. The president should not be dictating investigatory orders to the DOJ. That would be an egregious breach of norms. And it might even, I'm not sure on this, it might even be a breach of DOJ policy. Like, I know, for instance, the president can't dip down and talk to people in the DOJ. He's not supposed to do that. That's a contravention of DOJ policy. It's an explicit violation of DOJ policy to do it. I don't know if the policy of the DOJ allows the president. I'm sure the president can talk to, because it's his office created by Congress. I don't know if the DOJ was created by Congress or the Constitution, but it's an office that's created for the president. That's his officer. I'm sure he can talk to him about things. But the idea of the president going and just ordering the DOJ to find crimes and investigate these things, if it's not a direct violation of policy, it would be an egregious breach of norms, and we would all agree it shouldn't happen. And there's no evidence of this happening under Biden at all. So it's such a crazy, stupid.
Departments under the executive branch are like somehow above the executive branch.
They're not above. Wait, they're not above.
This, like, the way that he framed this here is like so wildly, unbelievably stupid.
District attorneys prosecute. Presidents don't prosecute. That's one of the major differences.
The DOJ serves under the president. Like, this weird idea that departments under the executive branch are like somehow above the executive branch.
They're not above.
Nobody even said they were above too. That's like him trying to bad faith reframe what was just said. Nobody's saying they're above it. They just don't. Like, the president should be dictating to them exactly who they go and investigate.
They're not above the executive branch, but the president, by way of norm, is not supposed to be involved with the day-to-day prosecutorial decision. So the attorney general serves at the pleasure of the president. He is the president is his boss. But the thing is that they shouldn't be directed. You prosecute this person, you don't prosecute this person. It's like broad, like, hey, we're going to reschedule marijuana. We're going to focus more on these sorts of cases than this. Not you're supposed to prosecute this person or not. No one is saying that the attorney general is totally independent of the president. They serve at the president's pleasure. The president's just not a prosecutor the way a district attorney is.
I never said the president was a prosecutor. I said he got his prosecutors to go after them.
Yeah, but
wait. I like how he thinks that this distinction here matters. The president got his prosecutors to go after them. What's the evidence? Where? When?
Prosecutor, the way a district attorney is.
I never said the president was a prosecutor. I said he got his prosecutors to go after them.
Yeah, but
wait. So the president did get prosecutors from the DOJ to go after Trump?
No, I asked you a hypothetical that if this were the case, but they went through the normal legal process, you would be fine with that? That's the standard?
No, because in order to make it comparable, it would have to be like the governor of New York running on trying to...
A local DA that's very pro-Trump, 90% Trump category, finds an official, charges him with a crime that he campaigned on charging him with. They present evidence in front of a grand jury. It's enough for an indictment. Very low standard, by the way. And they secure a conviction. That's like totally legit.
The evidence of the crime is already in the public square.
If they think they've committed a crime. Hold on. Especially as a New Yorker, you don't think people have ever run on cleaning up crime, on getting rid of like the mob or the mafia, or run as a DA on doing things to get rid of...
You're not answering the question, which is a very direct question. Would that be okay?
I can't both at the same time. Sean, you were saying something?
Yeah, so you're not answering the question, which is a very direct question, and now you're pivoting to a DA running on being tough on crime and prosecuting criminals in general. Like, that's completely different.
General thing. People want to go after particular criminals. If you think a guy's committed a crime and the DA runs on that, he's like, I think that this guy's a criminal. When I'm the DA, I'm going to go after this guy.
The evidence of the crime was already out in the public space at that point. Michael Cohen had testified in front of Congress to these crimes. He had been criminally charged and convicted on these crimes. So it's not like there was some fishing expedition. There was already strong evidence of these.
Oh, he might have been the first one to say fishing expedition, maybe.
Crimes out there in the open that had been reported on and adjudicated for years.
Okay.
Michael Cohen was prosecuted by federal authorities, am I right, or no?
No, but it was for the same. It was for the same. Like he was prosecuted federally, but the crimes were related.
All right, but can I also get my question answered? So it would be fine.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Fine if like a
Can we
Trump
make this the last
district
question
attorney
so we
did
can
that.
get to some of these donations, guys? Because we
If
are
a district attorney thought that somebody, if a district attorney thought somebody had committed a crime and he runs on that, I'm going to hold him accountable for this crime that this person's committed. Yeah, and they go through the ordinary process and not breaking any rules or anything. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think everybody.
Okay, so running on, I'm going to find a crime to prosecute them. That's totally.
Notice how he keeps changing to try to get me to accept something. Like my response is pretty clear here. I think.
District attorney thought that somebody, yes, if a district attorney thought somebody had committed a crime and he runs on that, I'm going to hold him accountable for this crime that this person.
If he has a crime in mind, he thinks a person is committed, and he says, I'm going to hold him accountable for this particular thing.
is committed. Yeah, and they go through the ordinary process and not breaking any rules or anything. Yeah, I think that's fine.
As long as they go through, they do their grand jury, they've got evidence they're doing their subpoenas and everything correctly. They think he's committed a crime. This is what you want a DA to do. Yes, this is what DA should be doing. Yes, this is their job.
I think everybody
running.
But then he changes it to running on.
Okay, so running on, I'm going to find a crime to prosecute them. That's totally fine.
Running on, I'm going to find a crime implies that there's nothing there. What do you mean?
Alvin say that I'm going to find a crime.
Yeah, he said. What was the exact quote? What you call it, Cam? You were talking about it
Then he tossed it over to Cam, who has no idea what's going on here. Oh shit.
earlier that he said he was running on seeing Trump in court.
Oh yeah. He like specifically said that he was the person that had the most experience on the ballot with dealing with Trump in court.
Okay, what did he say? He was going to find a crime?
He didn't.
Notice how they both answer in things that have nothing to do with what like the big assertion here is, right? Like Sean is saying he's going to find any fucking crime. He's going to find a crime, right? Saying he's got the most experience dealing with Trump in court. Okay, if Trump has a court case in front of him and the guy's running on having experience dealing with Trump in court, yeah, that sounds like a good reason to vote for a guy. Yes, he's the DA. He's the district attorney. He's like the lead, the representative of the state prosecution here. Of course, that would be a good reason to vote for him. What the fuck?
Specify what crime he was going to prosecute him on when he was asked.
So he didn't say this then.
No,
You
it's
completely
true,
made that up. So you completely fabricated that, to be clear, right? Hold on, Sean. You totally just made that the fuck up, right? That he was going to find a crime, right?
I didn't say he said as an exact quote he's going to find a crime, but he ran on finding a crime to prosecute on Trump.
You know he did that if he didn't say it exactly, though.
Running on finding a crime. I might not phrase this well. I don't need the exact quote of like, I'm going to find any crime, but like any evidence at all that he said he's just going to find random crimes, anything about that at all. Like,
I thought we were going by exact quotes, a detailed manifesto of exactly what he's going to do.
You just inserted that in there and pretend, and you hope that your audience won't notice.
If there's already federal prosecution of people around Trump or Cohen for these exact types of behaviors, why wouldn't we assume that Alvin Bragg is running on the idea of going after Trump because he knows that Trump was in the state of New York when these crimes are being committed? Why couldn't we just assume that?
I'm looking for the quote that he...
There's no... Fuck. Sean is super slimy. I should have made him answer. He doesn't answer anything. Can you answer that? Like, why can't we just assume that Trump is already in hot water for crimes that he committed while he was already living in New York? Why wouldn't the DA running for New York, who's talking about going after Trump for crimes while Trump is in New York, he's just talking about the crimes that Trump has already been investigated for, that he's already committed in New York? Wouldn't that be like the way more logical, reasonable assumption? Like, wouldn't we just assume that? Like, unless we have very strong evidence to the contrary.
For his campaign.
You also check the timeline. In all seriousness, I thought that Trump was already under some sort of preliminary investigation by Bragg's predecessor, wasn't he? That's the other thing, too. I can't remember, but you may want to double check that, too.
Okay, can we use this as a stopping point? And Sean, during the question period, if you find something, maybe we can retouch on it again? Okay, fantastic.
Also, quick thing for how you know this is bullshit. If there were strong quotes about this or strong evidence of this being the case, it would be immediately findable. This would be a pretty sensational thing. If a DA was saying, like, I don't care what this guy's done, I'm going to fucking get this guy. I'm going to get this guy on anything. I don't care. We're going after him, right? If it was as vague and bullshitty as he's saying it is, it's probably pretty easy to find this.
Thank you guys for being here for this. We're going to go through some questions because a lot of people have questions. We got a lot of people watching. Happy to see it. Let me read through these quickly, okay?
Okay.
To bring up the exact quote, while I decided that I was going to go out on my own and look for this quote myself.
I think everybody
running. Okay, so running on, I'm going to find a crime to prosecute them. That's totally fine.
Did Alvin say that I'm going to find a crime?
Yeah, he said what was the exact quote? What you call it, Cam? You were talking about it earlier that he said he was running on seeing Trump in court.
Oh yeah. He like specifically said that he was the person that had the most experience on the ballot with dealing with Trump in court.
Now, the reason I did this is because if you rewind the debate to when this came up specifically with Alvin Bragg, what you will discover is that the person who made the claim that I am currently being smeared with is in fact Cam.
Cool. I'll answer the question too. Yeah. So I don't think it's a threat to democracy. I think it's a bad and corrupt thing to do.
No. No, the reason why we're on this tangent is because Sean said, wow, now I'm glad I watched earlier. Wow, he's trying to throw Cam under the bus. Sean made this claim. They ran wait. This was Sean, right? This wasn't Cam, was it? Or did I write down what Cam said? They ran specifically on prosecuting Trump. Normally, you have to find evidence of a crime before you begin an investigation, not as a campaign promise, run on finding a crime to charge somebody with. Hold on, let me just double, quadruple check. It was Sean that said this, right? That I wrote down, a campaign promise. Yes, this is what we're talking about.
prosecuting Trump. And remember, normally you have to have evidence of a crime before you start an investigation, not as a campaign promise run on finding a crime to charge somebody with. But again, even then...
Wait, hold on. No, wait. Never mind. This is at 1:30:104. So this was before Sean said this here. Okay, so hold on. Let's go back here.
With Trump in court.
Now, the reason I did this... Oh, what you call it? Cam, you were talking about it earlier, that he said he was running on seeing Trump in court.
Oh, wait. We're being so tricky right now. Wait, hold on. This is something that Sean said at 1 hour and 38 seconds. The reason why we're talking about this is because of that comment that I just played here. But he goes all the way back to 1:30.
Oh, yeah. He specifically said that he was the
but he
person
goes
that had
back
the most
all
experience
the way to
with dealing with Trump in
1:31.
court.
Now, the reason I did this is because if you rewind the debate to when this came up specifically with Alvin Bragg, what you will discover is that the person who made the claim that I am currently being smeared with is in fact Cam.
Cool. I'll answer the question too. Yeah. So I don't think it's a threat to democracy. I think it's a bad and corrupt thing to do, but I don't think it's a threat to democracy. Democracy will not cease to exist if you vote for Alvin Bragg, who explicitly
crimes or supposed crimes, depending on your perspective. I wanted to ask the room, is that an example of an attack on democracy, the political persecution of an opponent, or is it a bunch of hogwash?
I mean, it's an attack on...
Let's start with Sean, because he's been bringing it up.
It's an attack on the norms in our institutions. I mean, trying to remove Trump through the ballot, through the 14th Amendment. I mean, you could argue that that's an attack on our democracy, but our institutions held in those particular cases. But I mean, if you look at these different court cases, now granted, I will point out that they're not even all remotely federal. One is even a local one, the Alvin Bragg case. What you're seeing is weird new interpretations.
So he brings up the Alvin Bragg case at 1 hour and 28 minutes. Why is he throwing Cam under the bus here at 1 hour and 31 minutes? Let's see if we keep talking about it past it.
First time ever used interpretations in order to target Trump. I mean, the Bragg case, where it's a money thing, falsifying business records, those were enhanced to felony charges based on the fact that he was trying to influence the outcome of an election.
Now he's talking in detail about the Bragg case.
Now, that's fine that you could say that that's what you're trying to go for, but those falsifications occurred after the election. So it was, even on its face, that's a very odd upgrade to felony charges, especially from a guy who ran on and downgrades more felony charges than...
Now he's saying that Bragg ran on, downgrading felony charges or whatever because he likes to be nice to criminals, probably what he's saying. I don't even know if any of this is true.
Anyone in the history of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. You have the Georgia case where they actually prosecuted as a...
Then he switched. Okay, so there's a full 2.5, 3 minutes before. Sean is the first one to bring up Bragg. Unless Cam brought it up earlier, but if he did bring it up earlier, then AJW has made a mistake. Sean's made a mistake in only citing to 1:31:04.
Test case widely reported, young thug under the RICO statute in order to have a case more similar than the Georgia teacher statute in order to prosecute Donald Trump. And it was described by the media as a test case. It's still ongoing. And again,
Hi, what's up?
Keep listening to the 129. He makes a specific claim in the 129-minute range. Okay.
Gotcha. Still listening. Yep.
It's very unusual to try a completely different defendant in a new way.
He's got this weird thing about the RICO thing.
Precedent in order to try your political opponent, who, by the way, you ran on prosecuting. So yeah, these are problems, but do they necessarily...
And then I think he does this, you ran on prosecuting a political opponent. That sounds like he's making that claim, I think, about Bragg.
And again, that's very unusual.
Or that might have been about the Georgia... AG or DF
to try a completely different defendant in a new way, just so you have precedent in order to try your political opponent, who, by the way, you ran on prosecuting. So yeah,
no, that has to do with Georgia.
These are problems, but do they necessarily rise to the point of overthrowing our democracy? No, I think that is a heavy burden. I think it can change the norms. And honestly, I know a lot of people on the left are worried that Trump might win again, and he might follow suit with what the Democrats have demonstrated that they will do when they're in power. So but I don't think it's a threat to democracy in that same way.
At the end of the day, you still have to identify a crime. You still have to file charges. You maybe convene a grand jury. You have to convince a jury of your peers. And we're talking about the same DOJ that successfully prosecuted Bob Menendez. They just secured a guilty verdict
in an election year.
They're going after Texas Representative Cuellar. They successfully prosecuted Hunter Biden. So I'm sorry, I'm just not buying this.
Yeah, the whole allegation that the justice...
And then Sean doesn't respond at all to that. He's super quiet. Sean is really good at tact. Maybe because he knows other people will speak, he just doesn't say anything in response to that direct response.
Successfully prosecuted Hunter Biden. So I'm sorry, I'm just not buying this.
You could argue that at 45 seconds earlier, he was mentioning Bragg as well when he's talking about running on prosecuting political opponents. Sure, that Georgia and New York.
Yeah, the whole allegation that the Justice Department's been weaponized under Biden is absolutely preposterous. They appointed a special counsel to investigate him. Robert Hur released an incredibly politically damaging report about the president. They've been classified. They didn't want to put the U.S. attorney David Weiss for human ethics on Joe Biden's part, thus proving his moral superiority over Donald Trump objectively.
Cool. I'll answer the question too. Yeah, so I don't think it's a threat to democracy. I think it's a bad and corrupt thing to do, but I don't think it's a threat to democracy. Democracy will not cease to exist if you vote for Alvin Bragg, who explicitly campaigned on going to court with Donald Trump. And also, Hutch, it seemed that Sean said almost the exact same thing, and then you attacked him as if he said the inverse, again, strawmanning him, which seems to be your primary tactic throughout the entire debate.
Damn.
No, he accused Biden's DOJ of political persecution against Biden's like political opponents. And
I've heard Sean say explicitly throughout this debate that Biden's not involved, like several times. So I don't know.
Wait, Biden's not involved. Wait, Biden's not involved. In what?
Like prosecuting Trump.
He's not. Biden is not involved in prosecuting Trump.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point we're making. Like, I think Sean and I both have conceded that Biden's not involved, but it seems that Hutch keeps attacking Sean for the exact inverse of everything he says. Biden being involved, even though nobody said that Biden was involved.
Because he used language talking about political persecution using the DOJ.
I actually specifically clarified that there were state, even local officials. Then I went specifically to Alvin Bragg, who is a local official. I taled about them running on these. Like, are you not familiar? I said they weren't all federal.
So even Sean is saying that he's clarifying that he said this before Cam spoke. Why is Sean trying to make it sound like Cam is the first person that brought this up? Let me listen to this one more time. What the fuck? What?
He's running on seeing Trump in court.
Oh, yeah. He like specifically said that he was the person that had the most experience on the ballot with dealing with Trump in court.
Now, the reason I did this is because if you rewind the debate to when this came up specifically with Alvin Bragg, what you will discover is that the person who made the claim that I am currently being smeared with is in fact Cam.
Cool, I'll answer the question.
Bro, you brought this shit up unprompted like 2 minutes earlier. Damn, that's savage. Poor Cam. He's already brought into this debate like at the last minute because he didn't even, he wasn't supposed to be the one originally here. Lauren was supposed to be here doing a 2v2 initially. So he's dragged it at the last minute. And now Sean is going to throw him, who's supposed to be, by the way, the criminal justice guy who's supposed to know all this shit. Now he's throwing him under the bus for something that Sean brought up before he did.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a threat to democracy. I think it's a bad and corrupt thing to do, but I don't think it's a threat to democracy. Democracy will not cease to exist if you vote for Alvin Bragg, who explicitly campaigned on going to court with Donald Trump. And also, Hutch, it seemed that Sean said almost the exact same thing, and then you attacked him as if he said the inverse, again, strawmanning him, which seems to be your primary tactic throughout the entire debate.
The person who said he had the quote from District Attorney Alvin Bragg is in fact Cam.
So you are accusing the Biden DOJ of political prosecution, right?
Well, let me finish my point. So he says he should have went after him as soon as he got out of office. You had the special counsel bring charges on the classified documents case, but it would have been probably less political to go after him early when you weren't sure he was going to run rather than later. But it seems like they went after him and they put all these cases on the ballot. And again, most of it is not federal officials or the special counsel. It's local politicians that ran
Seems like they went after him.
Specifically on prosecuting Trump. And remember,
they ran on prosecuting Trump. Normally, you get evidence.
Normally, you have to have evidence of a crime before you start an investigation, not as a campaign promise, run on finding a crime to charge somebody with. So right here, I'm talking about a prosecutor looking into somebody in order to find evidence of a crime, rather than you having probable cause to start an investigation, which is the normal operating procedures that a prosecutor would go through in order to find evidence of the crime.
Don't you need probable cause for an indictment? You don't need probable cause for a, what is the standard for a subpoena? Is it just reasonable suspicion? How are you supposed to ever find probable cause if you don't start digging first? I'm trying to think of, I don't know what the standard is for a subpoena, but I think probable cause is enough for an arrest and for criminal charges. You wouldn't start with probable cause. I believe you start with reasonable suspicion. If you had to start with probable cause, you would never need to investigate. You would just arrest somebody immediately because that's enough for an indictment. I think, but maybe for a subpoena, I don't know why I'm giving him any charitability. I should just say this with absolute confidence and then ban anybody this isn't wrong.
I also end this hypothetical. I'm talking about somebody announcing their intentions. This is something that I mentioned. And by the way, this is clearly and obviously understood.
Real quick.
Yeah, go.
So the dumbest thing said in this entire video is when Sean says that you need to start an investigation, probable cause.
Yeah.
Anybody with any knowledge or information about the criminal justice system would not make that mistake.
Because probable cause is what you're trying to build up to for your initial charging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For a warrant or for an arrest.
Yeah.
So only someone who is, it actually is the best evidence that Sean wasn't lying, because only someone who is totally deranged, unconnected to any facts, doesn't know anything about anything, would make that mistake and not catch it in the video. It's such a dumb thing to say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because Hutch ends up responding at some point shortly after this.
He had been criminally charged and convicted of it.
So what is the point he's trying to make? Is he trying to pretend that Cam is the one that got us on this track when Sean is the one that brought up Bragg first?
Prosecutor would go through in order to find evidence of the, which is the normal operating procedure. crime, rather than you having probable cause to start an investigation.
This is a really stupid statement. Probable cause to start an investigation.
Which is the normal
cops don't need probable cause. If a cop has probable cause, he's arresting you. All cops need is reasonable suspicion. That's what you get pulled over for. That's what they detain you for, to begin an investigation so that they can build up to probable cause. And then you'll get arrested and then potentially charged with a crime if they feel like the evidence is strong enough to convict you.
Operating procedures that a prosecutor would go through in order to find evidence of the crime. I also end this hypothetical and talking about somebody announcing their intentions. This is something that I mentioned. And by the way, this is clearly and obviously understood because Hutch ends up responding at some point shortly after this.
He had been criminally charged and convicted on these crimes. So it's not like there was some fishing expedition.
That this is not a fishing expedition. But what I'm actually referring to exactly describes a fishing expedition. Let me play you the clip.
I will be shining a bright light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. And every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn.
So right there.
Okay, so I'm just gonna try to use my brain here, okay? Let's see if we can figure this out, okay?
Flip.
I will be shining a bright light.
This is it Leticia? Hold on, New York. I think it's the New York AG. Leticia James. Yes, I was gonna say Leticia Jones. This is the AG. So he apparently a lot of the negative things he was ascribing to Bragg, he's gonna say, well, actually, it was Leticia James to that. However, she's saying, what is she saying here? I'm gonna be shining a bright light into all of Donald Trump's real estate dealings. Is this out of nowhere, or? And I don't know because I haven't looked at this. We can go Google right now, though. I'm seeing here soon, day 2 of Trump's $250 million civil fraud trial set to begin. Is what she's saying, does it have anything to do with the already ongoing fraud trial? Or is this an older clip that's being played over... Oh, no, wait. This is 2018, to be fair. This is an older clip, I think, that's being played. Okay.
Into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. And every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn.
So right there, and it's dated November 7th of 2018, prior to Leticia James taking office as the Attorney General, she is pledging to a crowd that she will shine a bright light, not just into Trump's real estate dealings, which you might be able to argue in some way, shape, or form. There was a case in the news that she might be referring to, but all of his dealings, and she says she's going to demand truthfulness at every turn.
Even if we took her at her worst there and assumed there was nothing public about any shady thing happening ever, even if we took her at her worst there, there's still technically nothing wrong with what she's saying. If for some reason she believes that somebody has committed some kind of crime or somebody has done something bad, shining a light, what are we saying? Is she going to start arresting people without warrant? Is she going to start subpoenaing without like approval? Is she going to start like what is the wrong thing here that's even happening? Is he saying that just saying that I want to shine a light on Trump? Now, if it's only politically motivated or something, sure. If it's only politically motivated, I agree. That would be problematic for sure. I wonder if we can find the entire speech here. Leticia, November 7th, 2018. Nice, good one. I have no fucking idea. Spectrum News, New York 1, November 7, 2018. Fuck. Does anybody have this full, does anybody have the full speech here of what she's talking about? Oh, wait. He links it. Nice.
Sometimes Jonah wrestles with falling asleep. So he takes ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, and wakes up feeling like himself. Get the rest to be your best with non-habit-forming ZzzQuil. Better days start with ZzzQuil nights.
I do want to play some of the criticism from Trump himself, and particularly on comments made by the New York Attorney General Leticia James while she was running. Here are a few things she said then in 2018 about Trump.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president. He should be charged with obstructing justice. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses. I will be shining a bright light.
Okay, so that's just like a highlight reel.
His real estate dealings and every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn.
Would those comments have any legal basis for a dismissal here?
I don't know about a dismissal. I'm very, very troubled by them. I think they're completely unethical. I think it's, I actually have spoken with a fellow who's written a book on prosecutorial misconduct, and he's assured me he's going to include a chapter next time on the kinds of statements that are appropriate ethically and inappropriate ethically in the course of an election campaign for elected officials, for judges and prosecutors. I think they're very troubling comments. The government is held to a different standard, and the public generally believes that when they say something that it's accurate. We can't have people targeting particular citizens when they're running for office, especially when there's been no investigation and certainly no finding yet at that time of any culpability. I think they're very troubling. This is part of what I think is driving the polls, in addition to policy issues. I think that fundamentally American people demand fairness, and they don't want to see people targeted, even if they're sort of larger than life figures like Donald Trump.
Okay. Does anybody have a? I want to link to this speech. Can I find this anywhere? Does anybody have this campaign speech? I'm just curious what the full context of the statement is. Oh, it's gonna read. What's the date again? It was November 7th. Let's see if we can find it. Leticia James. Was it an election night speech? There is a full video of this somewhere. I know there's a full video of this somewhere. Let's see. Before 2019, after 2017. Can you explain to me why that was inappropriate? If somebody is running and the implication is that it's a political prosecution or persecution, maybe you could even say, where they're just going after someone because they really don't like them and they don't think a crime has been committed, that's problematic. But if somebody's running because they feel like somebody's committed a crime and they want to hold that person accountable, they're your district attorney, or in this case, your attorney general. That's what you would expect them to run on. You would expect them to run on things like persecuting people that have committed crimes, or prosecuting crimes. Like, the top one? Was this the...
The crowd was fired up.
Hold on. I felt like the room was darker in this. No, yeah, this isn't the same thing. Wasn't that the night she won? James' victory speech then? This is somewhere. This video is somewhere on the internet. I know this video is somewhere on the internet. Leticia James, election AG. Was that the Victory Day speech? Yeah, also that's true too. Because if she said this after she'd been elected or as she's elected, that's also, she's not technically running on that to say that the night of. Now you could say that she said it earlier, but then you would have to show a video of it earlier as well. The general election was held on November 6th, 2018. Oh, in that case, sorry, hold on, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So I'm not going to do Sean's homework for him. In that case, this quote is entirely and completely defeated by the date itself. And so this is not the example that he can show to demonstrate anything. He's defeated his own example with the date.
Expedition. But what I'm actually referring to exactly describes a fishing expedition. Let me play you the clip.
I will be shining a bright light.
Because to say that she's running on this is she's already elected. It's 2018, November 7th. The election's closed on November 6th, right? Or the general election was held on November 6th. So it was the day before. So he would need an earlier clip to even show his he would need an earlier clip to even show what he's trying to demonstrate here.
Into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. And every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn.
She's also not Alvin Bragg. True, as well.
So right there, and it's dated November 7th of 2018, prior to Leticia James taking office as the Attorney General, she is pledging to a crowd that she will shine a bright...
Oh. Do you see what he did there? This is why I don't think he's dumb. This is why I think it's intentional. He's so sneaky. He doesn't say while she's... Hold on. Let me hear the before and after of this. 1 second.
that this is not a fishing expedition. But what I'm actually referring to exactly describes a fishing expedition. Let me play you a fathom.
The Biden DOJ, a political prosecution, right?
Well, let me finish my point. So he says he should have went after him as soon as he got out of office. You had the special counsel bring charges on the classified documents case, but it would have been probably less political to go after him early when you weren't sure he was going to run rather than later. But it seems like they went after him and they put all these cases on the ballot. And again, most of it is not federal officials or the special counsel. It's local politicians that ran specifically on prosecuting Trump. And remember, normally you have to have evidence of a crime before you start an investigation, not as a campaign promise run on finding a crime to charge somebody with.
Not as a campaign promise run on finding a crime to charge somebody with. So it's a campaign promise. You're campaigning, you're not elected yet, and you're running on finding a crime to charge somebody with.
So right here, I'm talking about a prosecutor looking into somebody in order to find evidence of
here. You're talking about a prosecutor looking into someone in order to find evidence, but you're running on it as part of your campaign.
A crime,
right?
Rather than you having probable cause to start an investigation, which is the normal operating procedures that a prosecutor would go through in order to find evidence of the crime. I also end this hypothetical and talking about somebody announcing their intentions. This is something that I mentioned. And by the way, this is clearly and obviously understood because Hutch ends up responding at some point shortly after this.
He had been criminally charged and convicted on these crimes.
Hold on.
So it's not like there was some fishing expedition.
That this is not a fishing expedition. But what I'm actually referring to exactly describes a fishing expedition. Let me play you the clip.
Then he plays a clip of her speaking after she's won her election. So now we're not technically talking about campaigning on or promising in order to get elected. This is after she's won her election. But hold on, listen. This is so good. Wait.
I will be shining a bright light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. And,
listen, hold on.
Every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn.
So
right there, now he doesn't say before she's elected. He doesn't say while she's campaigning. And he doesn't say before she wins the office. He says...
And it's dated November 7th of 2018, prior to Leticia James taking office as the Attorney General.
Taking office. Does he say that because he knows she's already been elected and won her campaign? That was a very particular word that he used there. He acknowledged the date, so he knows she's won the election, so he knows that this example doesn't apply to what he was just saying. Not to mention the fact that it is a different person. It's not Alvin Bragg, it's Leticia James. But this is the... I know that Sean has done this for a long time. You guys simp for him so hard. I don't know why. He's done this to me in like multiple debates where he's so slimy. He's one of these slimiest people I've ever debated before. He tried to do it in person even when we were at the modern day debate, in-person debate. He is so sneaky and slimy though.
She is pledging to a crowd that she will shine a bright light, not just into Trump's real estate dealings, which you might be able to argue in some way, shape, or form. There was a case in the news that she might be referring to, but all of his dealings, and she says she's going to demand truthfulness at every turn. This is a fishing expedition. When you are telling people you're going to look into somebody in order to find evidence of a crime, and again, she was the public advocate for New York City before this. She was not an assistant attorney general or anything like that. She is promising to go on a fishing expedition. This is exactly what I was referring to in this particular moment right here. And again,
now he's like, well, this is what I was referring to the whole time. You were talking about running for office, explicitly saying you were going to go on a fishing expedition, not those exact words, but you were going to go and try to find any crime. This is actually, she's already been elected. She's already been elected.
Got conflated with Bragg. Maybe worst case scenario, you say I misattributed this to Alvin Bragg, but and again, it got conflated with Bragg. Maybe worst case scenario, you say I misattributed this to Alvin Bragg, but in no way, shape, or
that's the worst case scenario. No, that's your best case scenario. Wait, what? That's the best case scenario is I just misattributed to it. That's the charitable interpretation. The worst case scenario is assuming you're intentionally lying about all of this and conflating all these people because it doesn't matter to you because you're just trying to sell whatever lie you think you can get away with because nobody actually knows, the exact names and dates and statements made by these people.
To go on a fishing expedition. This is exactly what I was referring to in this particular moment right here. And again, it got conflated with Bragg. Maybe worst case scenario, you say I misattributed this to Alvin Bragg, but in no way, shape, or form did I go out of my way to make something up out of thin air in order to tie down Alvin Bragg and besmirch his good name, which, to be clear, he does not have a good name. In fact, the person who attributed this to Alvin Bragg was Cam, not me, and he was referring to a different quote.
Bro, you brought up Bragg first. Why is Cam getting thrown under the bus so much here?
And you have to remember, this election was actually occurring in 2020 because Bragg was sworn in 2021, where he was arguing on the campaign that he would be the best person to take up an already existing case against Trump, and he was citing his other lawsuits against Trump as qualification.
Now he's acting like he knew Bragg already had the existing law. He learned this at the end of our debate. He learned that he didn't know this, that there were already existing lawsuits. He learned this in the end of our debate after he tried to smear Bragg for 30 minutes.
Which is still questionable behavior, but it is nowhere near at the level of what I was talking about in the against Trump as qualifications, which is still questionable behavior.
Why would it be questionable behavior? If your state is engaged in a lawsuit against an incredibly wealthy person, like, I remember when I lived in Omaha, people ran on this. Yeah, if the state or the city is engaged in really costly litigation against like a big corporation or against a really wealthy person or against a certain official, people run on this. Yeah, I've taken the bankers to task before. You know, I've challenged Wall Street and I've won. I was the person that sued this person. They're your district attorney. Or they're your prosecutor, or they're your general attorney. What the fuck else would they run on if not their fucking record? Yeah, no shit. Obviously, they're gonna run on their fucking record. What is improper here? Like,
but it is nowhere near at the level of what I was talking about in the hypothetical, which again was attributed to Leticia James. So for Stephen, who's been calling me a liar, who's like, oh, well, he made up this specific and all that, I want to know how you're going to justify that claim right now.
Because you're the one that brought this up. It wasn't Cam. We have something a whole minute earlier of you bringing this up before Cam even opened his mouth to, because you threw the defense over to him here because you realized you had no idea what the fuck you were talking about. What is the plan here for Sean? Is it just that nobody would rewind the video and watch? Well, I guess people don't, huh? Damn.
Election year.
They're going after
precedent in order to try your political opponent, who, by the way, you ran on prosecuting.
You ran on prosecuting. You ran on prosecuting. That was your claim. That was your specific claim. You even said it about Georgia as well. And then you throw Cam under the bus because 2 minutes later. Wait, was Cam only... Hold on, let me just double check. Was Cam only saying this because Sean threw it to him?
Hold on. When a new president, special counsel, thus
democracy, I think it's
superiority over...
It might not. It might have just been a separate question towards Cam.
Donald Trump, objectively.
Cool. I'll answer the question too. Yeah, so I don't think it's a threat to democracy.
Okay, so Cam did take the question here. But yeah, but the reason why we're talking about this is because Sean is the one that brought it up. Jesus.
Because I was obviously referring to something very specific and very real. It happened to be a different New York prosecutor. Now, maybe you could call this me misattributing something that Leticia James said to District Attorney Alvin Bragg. But again, the person who brought up a specific quote in this conversation about going after Trump was Cam, not me.
Correct. And the other quote.
Wait.
Specific quote in this conversation about going after Trump was Cam, not me.
No, we literally listened to it 2 minutes earlier. You cite Georgia. You say that they invented a whole case basically to trial run before they went after Trump with the racketeering stuff. And then you say that it happened in New York too, that people were just running on charging him.
Well, I think that is a heavy burden. I think it can change the norms. And honestly, I know a lot of people on the in power. So but I don't think it's a threat to democracy in that same way.
Hold on.
Executed as a more felony charges. That's what you're trying to go for. Get Trump. I mean, the Bragg case, I will point out that they're not even all remotely federal. One is even a local one, the Alvin Bragg case. What you're seeing is weird new interpretations, first time ever used interpretations in order to target Trump. I mean, the Bragg case, where it's a money thing, falsifying business records, those were enhanced to felony charges based on the fact that he was trying to influence the outcome of an election. Now, that's fine that you could say that that's what you're trying to go for, but those falsifications occurred after the election. So it was, even on its face, that's a very odd upgrade to felony charges, especially from a guy who ran on and downgrades more felony charges than anyone in the history of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. You have the Georgia case, where they actually prosecuted, as a test case, widely reported, young thug under the RICO statute in order to have a case more similar than the Georgia teacher statute in order to prosecute Donald Trump. And it was described by the media as a test case.
He brings this up implying this case was just done so that they could go after Trump later on?
Ongoing. And again, that's very unusual to try a completely different defendant in a new way just so you have precedent in order to try your political opponent, who, by the way, you ran on
try your political opponent, who, by the way, you ran on prosecuting.
So yeah, these are problems.
And now his claim is what? After all that?
At the level of what I was talking about in the hypothetical, which again was attributed to Leticia James. So for Stephen, who's been calling me a liar, who's like, oh, well, he made up this specific and all that, I want to know how you're going to justify that claim right now, because I was obviously referring to something very specific and very real. It happened to be a different New York prosecutor. Now, maybe you could call this me misattributing something that Leticia James said to District Attorney Alvin Bragg. But again, the person who brought up a specific quote in this conversation about going after Trump was Cam, not me.
Correct. And the other quote, he said, obviously, evidence, he gave the caveats. He wasn't as bad as Leticia James, and there's no...
Hold on, to be clear, for Leticia, you also couldn't cite anything that Leticia said that was bad. Also, the idea of the guy...
Hold on, Stephen. I do have the clips of Leticia where she said to a voter on the street that you should vote for her because she's going to sue Trump.
Now, by the way, this isn't the only time Leticia James did this. When she was approached by somebody asking her about the value of voting, she ended up responding to this person in this way.
And what would you say to people who say, oh, I'm not going to bother to register to vote because my voice doesn't make a difference, or I'm just one person?
I say one name, Donald Trump. That should motivate you. Get up your ass and vote.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
I love it. He probably does already.
Again, there's...
What is the date for this? What is she referring to? There could have already been... there could have also suing Trump. Yeah, suing Trump implies civil litigation, not criminal litigation as well, which is a separate thing too. But also, what is the... Wait, here's the fact check on this quote. What is the date here? This is from November 7th, 2018. Okay, so this is after she'd won her election, the day after James was elected, and the Instagram account of this, a community, almost like communist, activist who ran for New York City Council in 2019. In the video, appeared to record milestones, the relevant exchange. What would you say to people? This is what we just watched. Will you sue him for us? Or we're going to sue him. I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president. James made this statement in a nearly 3.5 minute video that she posted December 12, 2018 on nowthisnews.com, a politically progressive social media-focused news organization. The headline was, Why Leticia James Wants to Take on Donald Trump as New York's Attorney General. James opened the video by saying, America is in uncharted territory. We can just listen to the video. Just kidding. No, we can't. America is in uncharted territory. We are angrier and more deeply divided than we've ever been at any point in our history since the Civil War. And at the eye of the storm is Donald Trump, ripping families apart, threatening women's most basic rights. I'm running for Attorney General because I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake, from the Muslim ban to efforts to deport immigrants to denying transgender students the ability to choose whatever bathroom they want, rolling back regulations to protect our planet, colluding with foreign powers, putting profits over people, dividing us in ways we haven't seen in generations. We need to focus on Donald Trump. We need to follow his money. This is part of a response to a question asked of James and other Democratic New York Attorney General candidates during a September 16, 2018 debate. So this is by definition not really a fishing expedition if you're literally citing specific things that you would intend to challenge in court. It's already not like, we're already past like fishing expedition things. Here's actions that Donald Trump has taken that I think we should challenge, whatever. I'm writing on Attorney General so that I can do this, right? You might not agree with challenging him on these things. You might not agree that New York State should be, but it's the job of the Attorney General, right? Like it's like saying it would be improper for a senator to run on single-payer health care. It would be inappropriate. It's like, what do you mean? Well, because I disagree with single-payer health care. That's fine. You can disagree with the policy, but this is what a senator runs on. They run on passing legislation. We need to focus on Donald Trump. We need to follow his money. This is part of response to General. The question, what is your view of the proper basis required to start an investigation of a person or corporation or nonprofit? How much smoke, if any, does there need to be? And how do you guard against a rush to judgment against someone, whether it's an average unknown New Yorker or Donald Trump and his associates? James said an attorney's general should be following the facts and following the evidence, and that simply opening up an investigation can ruin lives. And so with respect to Donald Trump, we need to follow his money. We need to find out where he's laundered money. We need to find out whether or not he's engaged in conspiracies and whether or not he's concluded not only with Putin, but also with China as well. We all know that 10 years ago, he was almost bankrupt. Most domestic banks were not lending him any money. We're going to get all of his money to purchase his real estate holdings and all of his golf courses. And all of those transactions have happened here in New York City, which is why the next Attorney General is absolutely critical. What is filling my soul right now is Trump. James made that remark during her opening statement of an August 28th, 2018 debate with the Democratic candidates. If you want to say that this is evidence of like a fishing expedition or that she would invent something or make something up, you could say maybe that you're troubled politically by it. Maybe you could, okay, if you're troubled by an Attorney General saying that she wants to do things in a prosecutorial manner against somebody, which is what the Attorney General does. But then if you wanted to make that claim, okay, well, this is 2018, then the next step is, did they do this? Is there any evidence of any improper behavior? Like, have you seen them do something that, like, is evidence of them going on a fishing expedition, or is evidence of them doing something that they weren't legally allowed to do, or breaking some process or procedure, or doing something else? Because that's also the next thing that would be hugely missing from any of this as well. Prosecutors run on prosecuting crimes. Like, I don't know what the fuck else. I don't know what else you want. Like, it's such a bizarro world to live in. Trump said, I did nothing wrong, and he called James' investigation a vindictive and self-serving fishing expedition. Wait, this one.
I'm going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
I love it. He probably does already.
Again, there's Leticia James saying vote for her because Donald Trump. And when asked if she will sue Donald Trump, she's not saying we'll use all the afforded legal avenues in order to challenge anything that he's doing that's breaking the law. She says, yes, I'm going to sue him. Campaign promise directly to this individual right here. There's no
Hold on, to be clear. So I like how also, and we're not even saying, first of all, yeah, campaign promise. First of all, she's already won her election, number one. Number two, it's not just a random individual. It's what do they say, like a state council person or whatever? But I mean, they're about it, right? So one, she's already won her election. So to call it a campaign promise is not right. Okay. I don't like to do the comparisons. I do like to do the comparisons. I actually love to do the comparisons.
The law, she says, yes, I'm going to sue him. Campaign promise directly to this individual right here. There's no
Hold on, to be clear, for Leticia, you also couldn't cite anything that Leticia said that was bad.
It's really critically important that everyone understand, as was mentioned by Mr. Verhara, that filing a lawsuit, simply opening up an investigation, can ruin lives. And so with respect to Donald Trump, we need to follow his money. We need to find out where he's laundered money. We need to find out whether or not he's engaged in conspiracy, and whether or not he's colluded not only with Putin, but also with China as well.
Now again, you have Leticia James during the actual debates of the election in September of 2018 saying that she's going to follow Trump's money in order to see if he's money laundering and whatnot. And this is a fishing expedition because, once again, she doesn't have evidence for a crime. She's promising that she's going to just look into all his transactions in order to find money laundering, but there's nothing right now that says that she's continuing an investigation.
If it's oh shit, I was just gonna do the double standard thing. I like how these guys, because Sean will defend, okay, to the death, okay, the idea that you can't read Trump's mind. We can't know if Trump thought there was whatever, but you can't read his mind. You have no idea. You can't read his mind. You can't read his fucking mind. But her saying that as a prosecutor, by the way, as an attorney general, by the way, we're going to follow the money. We're going to see if anything improper is going to happen. You're reading her mind to say that she's going to engage in extra legal, like unfair, illegal practices to try to do stuff that she's not legally within her entitlement, within her right, within the purview of her job to do. Where the fuck do you get that from, right? Somebody says, we're going to follow the money. We're going to figure out if anything wrong is going on here, right? Well, she's going to obviously break the law. She's obviously going to do things that are illegal. She's obviously going to do things that she's not supposed to. Like, how do you know that? What's your evidence for that? Is her saying we're going to follow the money and see if somebody's colluding or doing something improper or illegal? Again, it's an attorney general. This is what they do. I mean, like, investigating crimes and looking into crimes is literally what they're supposed to do. What, like,
his transactions in order to find money laundering, but there's nothing right now that says that she's continuing an investigation or anything that they said as defenses of Alvin Bragg, because she's just promising a fishing expedition. Look, I take accusations of me deliberately lying to people out there in the audience, to my audience, very seriously. Long-term viewers of this channel know that I will go out of my way to correct mistakes, errors that I've made on this channel with whole separate videos included in the beginning of next videos, and do anything and everything to remind you of when I am in fact wrong. In fact, even in this stream, because I believed that Cam had the goods, when I couldn't find this Alvin Bragg quote, I said, you know what, I could be mistaken. I could be wrong, but Steven, of course, had to rage out like an absolute lunatic and say that I'm lying and then continue the lie past that point, and that's when I have to address it for this. Now, as far as the specific quote that Destiny is asking for, it does not exist. He gave caveats. He's smarter than he's smarter than I gave him credit for in my paraphrase. So if you want to take that, that's fine. So to be 100% clear, there is no way, shape, or form that you could say me referencing Leticia James without remembering that I'm...
Just to be clear, I don't know how much he's trying to gaslight the audience here. When Sean says he's giving caveats, he's smarter than I thought, the implication here is that Bragg is fully going to go and do illegal shit. The implication is that Bragg is going to fully go and do stuff that he's not supposed to, but he's smart enough. He's smart and clever and crafty, and he gives you these he hedges very intelligently first before he goes and does illegal shit. But when Donald Trump says, fight like hell or you're going to lose your country, well, we can't possibly know what he means by that. We can't possibly, when Donald Trump says things like, and I know you'll be marching down there peacefully, that's not him hedging. That's not him, like, trying to cover his ass. That's genuinely what he believes fully with his heart, even though we can look at what happened afterwards and how he responded afterwards, and every single thing sells the idea that he wanted violence. But for Alvin Bragg, who did the exact opposite every single time, we have the exact opposite conclusion, where, well, even if he said he was going to follow the law, he's obviously not going to because reasons. What's up? What do you want?
Yeah, notice real quick there the sneakiness as well, where he says, I thought that Cam had the goods. So which is it, Sean? Did you make that mistake because you thought Cam had the goods and you were relying on Cam? Or were you relying on your own broken memory of Leticia James? Even that is inconsistent. He's unwilling to say that it was definitely me misremembering these quotes, as opposed to me relying on Cam's memory and knowing that Cam had the goods. So even there, you can see slippiness, sneakiness. Yeah. He's not committing to a story.
Like, I'm only defending Bragg here because Cam brought it up first, but Cam happened to actually bring up the correct thing that I knew, but it was actually about somebody else and not Alvin Bragg. Like, even though he was actually the one that brought up Bragg. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
So if he was relying on Cam's having the goods, then why would he be saying that he misattributed the quotes? You should just say one or the other.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I was relying on my own memory. I was relying on Cam.
No.
That's when I have to address it for this. Now, as far as the specific quote that Destiny is asking for, it does not exist. He gave caveats. He's smarter than he's smarter than I gave him credit for in my paraphrase.
Trump Foundation agrees to dissolve. New York Attorney General says. Leticia James would have been the AG here, right? December 18th, 2018. So had this case already even been ongoing? When did the Trump Foundation cases start? Because if this happened, if the foundation was dissolving in 2018 December, I'm guessing this case was probably started years earlier already, or at least a year earlier. Maybe not. When did the Trump Foundation case start? In a June 2018 petition filed by the Office of the New York Attorney General, it was explained that none of the foundation's expenditures or activities were approved by its board of directors. The investigation found that the board existed in name only. It did not meet after 1999. It did not set policy or criteria for choosing grant recipients, and it did not approve of any grants. Mr. Trump alone made all decisions related to the foundation. And this was in a petition filed by the Office of the New York Attorney General in June of 2018. So there was already stuff on the books. There was already stuff on the books about Trump. Testified in an October 2017 deposition that he witnessed Donald Trump's campaign staff coordinate with Trump to use the Iowa fundraiser to benefit the campaign. In 2018, New York State Attorney General Barbara Underwood alleged that in a larger suit against the foundation that Trump, in using the foundation to promote his campaign during and after the Iowa fundraiser, had violated charities law. Like, this is all prior to Leticia James even being the Attorney General. Like... Leticia James was overwhelmingly elected as the AG of New York on Tuesday, shattering a tradition. Okay, so this is on November 6, 2018. Miss Underwood already has dozens of cases pending against Mr. Trump. Dozens of cases. Didn't Sean say earlier she wasn't promising to continue earlier cases? She was implying that she'd go after whole new things. Already had dozens of cases. Sean just doesn't know any of this. He did just enough research to inconveniently be incorrect about every single thing he's saying.
Phrase. So if you want to take that, that's fine. So to be 100% clear, there is no way, shape, or form that you could say me referencing Leticia James without remembering that I'm referencing Leticia James specifically in a hypothetical is somehow me lying deliberately about District Attorney Alvin Bragg. That is just...
He is lying deliberately. Okay, I will have one L. My bad. He was not lying about Alvin Bragg only. He was also deliberately lying about Leticia James as well. My bad. Okay, there are two people that he's lying about, not just one. Okay, that was my mistake.
Just not the case. Now, I do believe, and I have presented evidence for the fact that Alvin Bragg did charge Trump for political reasons. We had two prosecutors resign from Bragg's office because they believed that he was dropping the case after he took office, because again, it was just a campaign thing for him, and they were really angry about it. But then Bragg brings back the case up again after it is clear that Donald Trump is running for president in 2024. No
evidence for any of this. The two prosecutors left because they thought that he should have gone to a grand jury with an indictment. Bragg thought he didn't have enough evidence. Does he bring up an article or a video of anything proving? He keeps bringing this point up again, over and over again. Well, they only brought the charges back because Trump announced he was running again. Where's the evidence? Where does he show evidence for this? Maybe he will. What's up?
All right, this is the last thing, and then I'm not coming back again. Yeah. But I just have to say, so dishonorable for Sean right now to say what he just said about the two prosecutors. He says the prosecutors were upset that he dropped the case, so they quit and they had this letter, and then Bragg resumed the case after Trump announced the election.
Yeah,
he's confusing two different cases. The case that Bragg said we're not going to charge on was the inflated assets case, the inflating the value of the hotels, inflating the value of the golf clubs. That's a different criminal case that was never charged. The case that actually was charged is the hush money case. So this is another example in a long list of examples of Sean making mistakes, I guess. He's saying and claiming that this case was dead and buried and then Alvin revived it after he found out. But the truth is, there's some similar facts, but they're two completely different cases. And he has the gall to claim that they're the same case. One is the hush money case, and the other is the inflated assets case, which was never charged. And so only someone who is either lying or so incredibly, willfully blind, doesn't even do the barest due diligence to look into this matter, would say that. After, by the way, in my spaces, I explicitly warned him and told him, hey, these are two different legal theories. So him being put on notice by me that these are different cases in his follow-up clarification video, even after being put on notice, doesn't do the due diligence to make sure that he's not telling another lie. And this is the only evidence he has that it's a political prosecution.
Sure, yeah. Although his response to this, okay. Sean's response to what Pisco said is, okay, well, fine. They didn't. He didn't restart one drop case, but the only reason they brought charges on the other case because Trump announced he was running again, right? Is what he would say probably. But yeah, it's all the same.
But then Bragg brings back the case up again after it is clear that Donald Trump is running for president in 2024. Not to mention the fact, as I said, that Bragg, who has downgraded over half of felony charges, and by the way, this doesn't even count the dismissals in the cases that he just refuses to charge people, somehow found a way to upgrade the charges against Trump.
This talking point is nonsense. I don't know why he keeps saying this. Well, I know what he's trying to sell you this really weird, vague idea that Bragg said he was going to downgrade felonies. Well, why did he upgrade the felony for Trump? My guess is going to be, and somebody can link me an article showing me I'm wrong if there's one. My guess is going to be Bragg's probably said, we're going to downgrade felonies for people that we feel like don't deserve felonies. So things on like drug offenses or whatever was like, okay, we don't need to charge felonies for these people because it's going to ruin their lives. Not that they would try to get rid of every single felony that exists, or not that like nothing should be a felony ever. Like he keeps citing this stat like it has anything to do with what Donald Trump was charged with or anything to do with his case. It's such a stupid, vague assertion. Like imagine the guy who caught, Walter White is like, I'm not going to try to arrest people for drugs as much anymore. And like, oh, really? Well, why are you prosecuting Walter White just for being a meth king? Wow, good one. Like it's such a stupid fucking...
The dismissals in the cases that he just refuses to charge people somehow found a way to upgrade the charges against Trump, again, for political reasons, so that he can say, look, he's a convicted felon based on me going outside of my pattern of behavior and upgrading charges because specifically he was talking about a political opponent named Donald J. Trump. Now, the next lie...
Again, just no evidence. Like, so...
And upgrading charges because specifically he was talking about a political opponent named Donald...
Because it's just political for Donald Trump? Or?
J. Trump. Now, the next lie by Destiny that I want to address that he is deliberately spreading, let's be clear about that, is the idea that I misinterpreted it, deliberately so, the prompt is democracy on the ballot. Now, I did not misinterpret that prompt at all. There was no interpretation from me at all because I never received that prompt. I was messaged by Connor to debate up or down whether or not Trump would end democracy if elected. This is what I was offered as a debate. You can see it in plain text. And this is, by the way, what I agreed to actually debate. And I believe that Destiny as a debate, you can see it in plain text. And this is, by the way, what I agreed to actually debate. And I believe that Destiny is deliberately lying about this in order to smear me even further, because when Connor actually presented him the screenshot and took blame for sending me this, and by the way, this is what I agreed to, all of a sudden Destiny, who pulled it up, couldn't get it down fast enough.
Okay, so I sent Lauren and Sean, and I could look up the message to Lauren.
I'm going to send it to you.
But I sent the equivalent of will Donald Trump end democracy in 2024 or something like that, right? So that's an extrapolation. It's a little bit hyperbolic, et cetera. But of course, when you're recruiting somebody, you want to give them the most fiery version of the debate, right? And so Lauren says, what is the exact wording of the prompt? And I did send that to Lauren.
Wait, send what? Lauren, can you show me these DMs somewhere?
Sure.
I just sent you one of them. This is the one that was sent to AJW.
Hold on, yeah, there's nothing.
Oh my God, I know what he's about to do. And it's so stupid. I'm so happy he's about to do what he's about to do. I'm so happy this is about to happen. I know exactly what he's going to say. And it's so dumb.
Wrong with this, though. So there must be something more.
But hold on. No, what I sent to...
Wait, is this from my screen or is this...
AJW?
No, PSK just linked me a tweet where it's you saying, do you want to debate...
Wait, did I bring that up or was that put over my screen by Sean?
Debate part...
But hold on. No, what I sent to AJW?
No, PSK just linked me a tweet where it's you saying, do you want to debate... debate partners with one Southern contestant and another Democrat about whether or not Trump will end democracy if elected?
Yes. That was my extrapolation.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that annoys me about this is that since I provided the screenshot...
Wait, what? He said I brought it up and took it down. Wait, hold on.
Sure. I just sent you one of them. This is the one that was sent to
Oh, wait, was this an August edit? Oh, I wonder if August added it.
AJW.
Hold on, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this, though. So there must be something more.
But hold on. No, what I sent to AJW?
No, PSK just linked me a tweet where it's you saying, do you want to be debate partners with one Southern contestant and another Democrat about whether or not Trump...
What is the idea that I want to bring it up and take it down really quickly? Wouldn't I just not bring it up at all? What is the implication? Why would I show it if I don't want anybody to see it or read it?
End democracy if elected.
Yes, that was my extrapolation.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Yep. Now, one of the things that annoys me about this is that since I provided the screenshot, which, by the way, was demanded by Pisco, there should be no more conversation about this. This is what I was given. This is what I accepted. I would not have accepted the debate had the topic been, we're just going to argue randomly that something may damage an institution. It was an up or down question, and that's what I prepared for. There should be no argument against this because, obviously, this is what I was presented and what I agreed to. But instead, I get all these different ridiculous points, like from Pisco in his Twitter space, where he tries to make the case that it would have been interesting for me to bring up whether or not Kamala Harris would destroy democracy.
I like how he's pretending like this was just an easy, it should have just been a binary dichotomous, like, oh, will democracy end forever? Or is democracy going to carry on in some form? Like, oh, that's reasonable. That's a reasonable interpretation of, I think, what the prompt was. Meanwhile, and then when he was asked later on in that debate, he was like, wait, hold on. No, it wasn't in the debate. It was the next day, right? It was the next day? No, it was during the debate. do you think the Civil War was a threat to democracy? And he's like, well, it's a good question. I'm not sure. Like, wait, what the fuck are we even talking about then?
The one thing I wanted to bring up was, we're talking about, I want to kind of go back a little bit. So the whole is democracy on the ballot. First of all, this became the topic of the debate the topic of the debate became the debate, right? One of the things I had an issue with is that you could assume pretty obviously from that Trump was the one that this was being discussed about. I think that's pretty obvious.
True. YouTube chat comment. AJW really convinced himself that the debate was, will the world end for sure? And told himself, this is going to be easy. Actually true. Like, what is he thinking? And again, this is like it's an insult to me, Josiah, and Hutch. Like, does he think that we agreed to take on the debate prompt? We can prove with 100% certainty that Donald Trump will do everything to end the entire institution of the government as we know it in a way that it will never be able to be brought back in the future? Like, that's the prompt for us? Like, holy shit.
But, even if...
Like, what are we talking about here?
You could even assume, because of the rhetoric that has been going out there already about Kamala and being a communist and things like that, you could even assume in that end that it could go the way of Kamala. But obviously, the more obvious one is Trump. And I think it was really interesting when we looked at how actual Justice Warrior was going about all this. It was really interesting. He didn't understand the debate, but yet he kept, even when called out on it, continued to debate from the perspective as if the topic was, is democracy going to be ended?
Yeah.
Even when called out about it, he continued. It was not up until Lawrence Southern came in, and I could be mistaken on this, but until Lawrence Southern came in, that this entire 30 minutes of discussing what it was, that he actually speak up and go, oh yeah, this is the issue. So
it's a really good point. I want to address first the Kamala thing. So like,
hold on. Is her saying this about Donald Trump okay?
Hello, my name is Leticia James, and I'm running for Attorney General for the great state of New York. Now, more than ever, New Yorkers need an Attorney General who has the experience, the skills, and the passion to uphold our laws and defend our most basic rights. I have a real record of getting things done. As a former public defender, I fought for people who didn't have the resources to afford representation, but that didn't mean they should be afforded any less justice. As an Assistant Attorney General, I fought to protect our civil rights and to take on anyone who would abuse them or attempt to defraud consumers. And as a City Council member, I helped uncover one of the biggest corruption scandals in New York City and pass laws to improve the lives of New Yorkers. And as the current New York City public advocate, my office has addressed over 32,000 constituent complaints, individuals who walk through our doors without fancy lawyers or high-paid lobbyists. We have taken on bad landlords and the gun industry and passed a groundbreaking law to end gender wage discrimination. As the New York State Attorney General, I promise that I will use the powers of the law to move us forward and fight back against forces who try to move us backwards. I will take on President Donald Trump and anyone who tries to deny New Yorkers their most basic rights, whether it's corrupt politicians, unscrupulous landlords, inhumane immigration policies, or Wall Street abuses. I will take on powerful interests and hold them accountable. Because regardless of where you live, what you look like, who you love, or who you pray to, every New Yorker deserves equal protections under the law. And that will always be my driving force. I hope you will join me on this journey forward and vote for Leticia James on Thursday, September 13th, as the next New York State Attorney General.
I don't understand. Was the meme that because she said fighting, or what was the meme? Where was the timestamp?
As the New York State Attorney General, I promise that I will use the powers of the law to move us forward and fight back against forces who try to move us backwards.
Was that a meme or?
Yeah, that would have been a very interesting way to take it. Like if he actually argued that yes, democracy on the ballot because either A, Kamala Harris is going to institute these communist policies or policies that are like against our constitutional system, then insert da-da-da-da. Or you could take the route that, well, Kamala was appointed in an anti-democratic way by I disagree with this, but that's an angle you could take. So I think that's a really interesting perspective that like the question by its terms was not candidate specific.
Now, this was very annoying because based on the prompt that I got, my interpretation of it was that it was about Donald Trump. And the reason why is because the prompt is whether or not Donald Trump will end democracy if elected. So it would not have been a good argument if that was the question up or down to say.
Wasn't the publicly announced topic, like in the public, was it democracy? Is democracy on the ballot? Was that is there like a way that I can see this somewhere? Like, was there a tweet made about this? Twitter, Hippy Dippy, Lauren, Destiny, AJW. Fuck, I'm not gonna be able to find this. Oh. The return of Hippy Dippy. Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Well, Kamala Harris would end democracy as well. That's not a good counterpoint. So I didn't prepare that specific argument because, again, that wasn't the prompt. Mine was exclusively about Donald Trump. So I came in ready to argue exclusively about Donald Trump. And by the way, Lauren ended up asking for clarification of this. So when we spoke a day prior and I said, this is the topic as presented to me, and she says, yeah, I even clarified it with Connor, I had no reason to believe that the conversation would be something completely different. Now, another lie that spawns from this is the fact that I somehow, in bad faith, never made this point about the prompt being different or about them trying to argue a different standard than what I agreed to until over an hour in when Lauren Southern joined the conversation. And this is 100% false. In my opening statement, I laid out a standard that they were going to have to prove that the evil orange man would end democracy, as in the American government. They're going to have to explain exactly why the mechanisms of our government are going to be overthrown if presumably Trump gets elected. The fact of the matter is, our government is the longest consistent government currently going in world history at this moment in time. We have been through a bunch of different controversial elections. We have been through a Trump presidency already. So these guys are going to have to explain what would be different about Trump winning in.
Also, if this was a one-on-one debate, he never dealt with my hypothetical either. Now, I understand there's other people too, but he was able to like pivot and divert to like other people's statements. But I gave a hypothetical for, I think there are real threats. He could appoint a cabinet member who would do like crazy shit, and he could give them direct orders to do so and promise them either a pardon or use his newly found presidential criminal immunity to do these bad actions. Like, how would you deal with this? But that was just never addressed, literally in the entirety of the conversation.
2024, that was different from him winning in 2016. Around the 14-minute mark, after Hutch tried to put out what I consider to be a Weasley standard, because again, I was informed that the topic would be up or down, Trump is going to end the system if elected, I called this out.
But again, your argument seems to be that our institutions are strong enough to withstand someone like Trump. My question is, how do you justify allowing someone to come in and check those institutions, and actually stress them, and see how far these checks and balances actually go to constrain him?
What's Sean's general motivation here? Why would he lie and cope so hard on this? Because he's a conservative hack. He's a partisan political hack, right? His only job is to just appease like the conservatives in his audience. And it's like Donald Trump is the ultimate, I think, bad faith stress test. Like, how much can you mentally twist and contort yourself into an area where you can defend somebody without just coming off as like a total lunatic? And Sean is like extended beyond all limits of what you can do without appearing to be a crazy person.
Well, first of all, prior to your question, you were like, well, I'm not saying democracy is going to end. I'm just saying it's going to be chipped away. So you got to kind of commit to your argument, because if you're saying it's not going to end, then you kind of agree with me in that regard, that the institutions are well suited to hold up to whatever challenges, real or imagined, that Trump will bring up. So it seems a little weaselly for you to back off of the premise of the debate by saying like, oh, well, he might chip away at our institutions. I mean, you could argue that prosecuting your political opponent is chipping away at our institutions. You could argue that using new interpretations or setting up test cases in order to set up for a future prosecution against a former president is a chip at our institutions and at the norms that we're typically used to in the United States.
Look at how he goes from institutions, and now he says institutions and norms. Look at how he goes from like directly trying to destroy or attack our institutions to prosecuting a political opponent or creating a new way to like prosecute someone. Like, none of these things are technically, like, these things still can be checked in a variety of different ways. Now, these are all like wholly and substantively different. Like, there's a difference in kind between what we're talking about here versus what we're alleging Donald Trump would do, right?
Of America, the things that ultimately ended up leading to that immunity decision from the Supreme Court. That's not really the end of democracy. I don't think that our system was destroyed over the last 4 years under the Biden administration. So, like, I think you got to either commit, like Stephen actually is, to some kind of crazy plot that Trump's going to overthrow our entire system of government, or not.
And he even acknowledges that I've committed by giving my example, but he'll never deal with it. But
in fact, over and over again, well before Lauren showed up, I pointed out that they were going off the topic. And the reason I believe that is because I was presented a completely different topic. I agreed to that different topic based on those parameters. And that's what I prepared for / expected to debate. So when they started saying, oh, a threat to democracy and blah, 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 and all that, I took that as nonsense throughout the whole course of the debate. I challenged them to commit to the broader premise that I was presented, and now they're pretending like I just brought it up when Lauren got there, when that's just not the case. So all this talk about how, oh, well, it doesn't mean when you say if the Second Amendment is on the ballot or abortion is on the ballot that it's going to go away or be completely wiped out or whatever is completely irrelevant, because I was never presented this on the ballot question. I was presented, again, in plain English, up or down, whether or not Trump would end democracy if elected. Now that, of course, leads into the next slide, deliberately being pushed by Stephen against me, despite the fact that it is completely and utter nonsense on its face. And this is the idea that, oh, the reason I argued the way that I argued is because I believe America's not a democracy, it's a republic. Now, to be clear, I do believe that, but I never made that point at all whatsoever during the Hippy Dippy live stream. And the reason I never made that point is because I understood, for the context of this conversation, that distinction made no difference.
No, I hear you. There's an interesting question about what democracy means. Recall, of course, by the way, that actual Justice Warrior, his whole position is we don't actually have a democracy. And so for his merit, there can be no threat to a democracy in America, because he said multiple times, we do not live in a democracy. So if we're going by that definition of democracy, I don't think actual Justice Warriors would raise the kind of concerns the Confederates are bringing up, because he would, of course, not agree. He would say, well, you guys are stupid. There is no democracy. You live in a republic, or whatever his phrasing is. On the actual merits,
which I find to be silly and pedantic and semantic.
Yeah, it's stupid, but the question is...
It's not silly. Oh, it's not silly and pedantic and semantic and stupid. It's intentional. It's intentional and malicious. It's intentional and malicious.
So when Pisco just makes up out of thin air that that's literally my whole argument, and then Destiny, who is watching live, listening, says, oh, it's not that he actually believes that, he's being malicious about it, thus affirming the inaccurate assessment of my position, that is objectively a lie. And if you want to prove that it's not a lie, show me exactly where I said that on the Hippy Dippy live stream. And the crazy thing is, not having this context, I end up going on the Twitter space. Destiny asked me, is America a democracy? I say, is it a republic? And he starts making all these snide, ridiculous comments about, oh, I understand this and that.
I understand. Okay. I concede all of the debate from last night. There is no threat. Yes, there is no threat to democracy. We don't have democracy. I understand now.
And again, I don't have any context for the fact at this moment in time that he's been lying about my argument for a full hour beforehand. And by the way, Pisco is buying into that lies. And in fact, after Destiny raged out of that Twitter space, I ended up saying, yeah, Pisco, while I do believe that, for the purposes of the conversation yesterday, I didn't make that argument because I understood in general we were talking about the American electoral system. So in that context, I was going to fight on that point, because what's the point of fighting on that? And you all...
Hold on, am I crazy? I thought I asked him point blank, are we a democracy? And he said like, no. What was the, I feel like I asked a direct question about this. Can you show me these? Hold on. "91 hits, holy shit." Wait, let's look for Republic instead.
Bringing up because he wouldn't, of course, not agree. He would say, "Well, you guys are stupid. There is no democracy. We live in."
Okay, I don't think he joins until later. I got it all. Okay, great. That's amazing. Okay.
Wait. That is your point, AJW. It is your point that there is no democracy in America. Fair.
Well, the American system is a republic, but
this is like, again, he's not this stupid. He's not this autistic. This is intentionally weaselly, slimy phrasing, right? Well, we are a republic. So Pisco says it's not a democracy, right? And he's like, well, we are a republic, right? In that case, we have no, that's fine. Okay, so I understand. Let's just listen to this section. Legislation. Votes for senators, and they appoint and confirm the Supreme Court justices. So legislation, by your argument, is not democratic, right? We don't vote on that legislation. Acknowledge that what you just said, that there's an objective reality about democracy.
Yeah,
that was the...
It's more objective than the idea, like threatened democracy. Objective than
it's more one-to-one with the Kamala example. One-to-one.
It's more objective than whether or not somebody's a threat to democracy, or if they win, will they threaten democracy?
On what ground can you say it's more or less concrete again?
I said it's more objective than the idea, like a threat. Whether you perceive something to be a threat is inherently subjective.
Whether you perceive something to be democratic, isn't that inherently subjective?
No, there's a certain degree of like objective reality when it comes to whether or not a process is democratic.
Hold on.
So
Wait. That's completely wrong. Hold on. Just as a quick precursor, do you know how any single part of the United States government works ever? Like any part of the government whatsoever? I'm just checking.
I'm so aggressive here. He's triggered the fuck out of me so much. The idea that you can objectively say the level of democracy, that's not true. Republics, democracies, all these things exist in broad spectrums. The idea that like, well, you can it's objectively true. I mean, that's not true. That's bullshit.
Okay, you understand that there are people that are appointed, right? That we don't democratically elect, right? Do you think that the Supreme Court justice is that undemocratic because nobody votes for them?
Yeah, they're not democratically elected.
Okay, wait. Yeah, so do you acknowledge that what you just said, that there's an objective reality about democracy? That was the most retarded statement that anybody with even a level 1 understanding of U.S. civics could ever say, right? You acknowledge that was a retarded statement, right?
The Supreme Court is not democratic. Like, that's easily objectively verifiable.
Okay, so legislation is not democratic either then, right? Because we don't vote on bills. We don't vote on it, right?
We have a representative democracy.
No. We have a representative democracy that appoints the Supreme Court, that confirms the Supreme Court justices as well. Why does the Supreme Court justice not count, but legislation does?
So what? We have a president who appoints Supreme Court justices, and we have a representative democracy that votes for senators, and they appoint and confirm the Supreme Court justices. So legislation, by your argument, is not democratic, right? We don't vote on that legislation.
Well, we don't vote directly on it, so in that sense, it's not democratic.
Okay.
This is retarded. It's okay.
And the presidential election, that's not democratic, right? Because we don't even get to vote on that. It's just the electors, right?
Presidential election is 50 individual elections, and people argue that it's not democratic because the person with less votes can.
Okay, so in that case, we have no. That's fine. Okay, so I understand. Okay, I concede all of the debate from last night. There is no threat. Yes, there is no threat to democracy because we don't have democracy. I understand now. I got it all. Okay, great. That's amazing. Okay.
Wait. That is your point, AJW. It is your point that there is no democracy in America. Fair.
Well, the American system is a republic, but for the purposes of the conversation...
No. The American system is a democratic, constitutional republic. It is all three of those things. You understand that you saying it's a republic and not a democracy when we vote is retarded, right? That was a retarded comment, right? You know we are a democracy and a republic. Do you know...
Somebody needs to make him admit, yes, I am retarded. Yes, I did make a retarded comment. Somebody needs to force him to do it. Why won't Pisco do it here? Why is Pisco being a punk bitch in this conversation? Make him admit, yes, I did say something fucking retarded. Yes.
We are a republic and a democracy. Do you think that the United States is both?
We're a republic with democratic elements to it.
No,
like
stop. No.
Like, do you know this? I think this is the line of questioning. Hold on.
We are is retarded, right? That was a retarded comment, right? You know we are a democracy and a republic. Do you know that we are a republic and a democracy? Do you think that the United States is both?
We're a republic with democratic elements to it.
No,
like
stop. No. Is the United States a republic and a democracy?
A republic.
Okay, yeah. This is okay. Wait,
And his statement is that he doesn't believe this?
lying about my argument for a full hour beforehand. And by the way, Pisco is buying into that lies. And in fact, after Destiny raged out of that Twitter space, I ended up saying, yeah, Pisco, while I do believe that, for the purposes of the conversation yesterday, I didn't make that argument because I understood in general we were talking about the American electoral system. So in that context, I was going to fight on that point because what's the point of fighting on that? And you all, in the context of that conversation, get when you're talking about democracy, you're talking about the United States governing system.
It sounds like you're acknowledging that there are different definitions of democracy that you're working with. If you're saying that in the context of the debate prepared with, I'm using a different definition of democracy.
Pisco, don't be retarded. In the conversation, we were asked if Trump would end democracy. So I interpreted that as we're calling America a democracy, like our current governing system and how we choose our representatives and all that. For that conversation, if you asked me, is America a democracy or a republic, I would opt for the America as a republic, which is completely different. Now, I didn't once do the little thing where I was like, technically America's not a democracy throughout the whole debate because that would have been pointless and wouldn't have gotten us anywhere. What I did do was try to argue what we actually agreed on or what I was actually invited to debate, which apparently I'm supposed to psychically like understand.
Just for the 50 trillionth reminder, there is no tension and there is no, you don't have to choose one or the other between a democracy and a republic. We live in a democratic republic. We have republics. We have a republic. We've got elected officials that do legislation for us. They represent us, but we elect them through elections. We are a democratic republic. There is no tension. There is no mutually exclusive property between these two things. We can be both. Okay. The idea that we're either a democracy or a republic is I don't know where. Again, well, I guess Connor kind of exemplified it. Apparently, he was like, "Well, I'm a Republican, so I defend the republic." Like there's no tension between these two things. We're a democratic republic.
Was try to argue what we actually agreed on or what I was actually invited to debate, which apparently I'm supposed to psychically like understand that it's actually something different. How?
Sean, first of all, I totally appreciate you making those clarification points because I wasn't sure. Because in terms of the first part of what you said, and I'll get to the second part. The first part you're saying is like, of course, when I come into the debate, I'm using democracy in this.
Republic is Republic is just the form of government, but democracy is a value. No, what? Democracy also refers to like the form of government. It refers to what we do in our government. We vote. Citizens go out and they vote for things. That is a democracy. We vote for things that affect things. That's a democracy. When you vote, when the public people go out and they vote for stuff, it's a democracy.
In the sense of the American constitutional system, I'm not using this more narrow version of democracy, which I wouldn't apply in more general terms to America.
Now, again, if you have any evidence that I made this claim during the Hippy Dippy live stream, present that evidence. Show that evidence. If you have any evidence that I was presented the actual topic and that I would have agreed to the actual topic, which is vague, oh, is this a threat? Is this potentially bad or that? Then present that. Tell me how, in my mind, on my honeymoon, when I got this request and I agreed to this based on these terms, I actually psychically knew that they were presenting something completely different to the other side. I want that presented to me. And by the way, as late as the community tab, where I posted the link to this live stream, I was still using the same language that was originally presented to me. Right here on the community tab. I will be live at 8:15 Eastern Standard Time debating whether Trump will end democracy with Destiny and others. Read. So just to recap, it is 100% unreasonable, as in a standard that no other person would be expected to be held to receive this message from Connor, which says up or down, will Trump end democracy if elected, for me to assume that the topic is completely different than what was being presented to me by the person who recruited me onto the show. Connor has acknowledged that this was his error, his mistake. I don't think there was anything malicious about it. I know a lot of people in my audience are saying that it's a setup, but the fact of the matter is they're expecting me to be able to argue something completely different that I probably wouldn't have even agreed to in the first place based on this prompt, and then claiming the extra step that I'm going out of my way to bad faith interpret a prompt that was never presented to me, and again, I would not have agreed to. If Stephen Pisco, Hutch, any single lefty were put in the same position I was put in, were offered to and agreed to terms that I agreed to, and then things were completely different by the time that they showed up to the conversation, then I would not blame them for somehow receiving the different terms and agreeing to them. On top of that, throughout the whole course of the conversation, because again, this was the premise that was presented to me, I was like, fine, we can move on from this if you would just concede this point, and Destiny refused to do so.
Oh, and so what you intended when you wrote the question, just concede that that you do not know that Trump is going to be a dictator, and let's move on.
If somebody says integration is on the ballot, does that mean that
So for Stephen to assert that it's absolutely crazy for me to interpret is democracy on the ballot, again, something that I never received, never interpreted, to mean whether or not Trump will end democracy if elected in 2024, which is exactly what I did receive, and then also refuse to concede that point to move on to another part of the conversation, is intentionally bad faith, and by the way, completely stupid. It's ridiculous that he's making these two arguments out of both sides of his mouth. But again, I will point out, he couldn't get that screenshot off his screen fast enough because he knew it completely refuted, disputed, and destroyed his entire baseless line of attack again.
It's such a strange, it's such a strange mindset to accuse me of, is that one, it seems to me, it looks pretty obvious to me that this is not something that I'm bringing up. It's something my editor is putting up, number one. And number two, whether it's either me or my editor, why would I try to get something off my screen so fast when I'm the one that put it there? I would just not put it there. Like, what is the implication here? That why would I show it at all if I didn't want people to see it, right? Never mind the fact that it's pretty obvious that this August, put this up, but
screenshot off his screen fast enough because he knew it completely refuted, disputed, and just sides of his
also fast enough. How long does it take you to read this? How long is this on my screen for? Hold on.
But again, I will point out, he couldn't get that screenshot off his screen fast enough because he knew it completely refuted, disputed.
Was that up for 5 seconds?
These two arguments out of both sides of his mouth. But again, I will point out.
Let's see if we can read it. Do you want to be debate partners with Lauren Southern against Destiny and another Democrat about whether or not Trump will end democracy if elected? Oh, shit. Okay, well, we only got to... Okay, there's the bottom part here. It'd be a hippy-dippy debate, 4-person panel. Okay, reading out loud. I was not able to read the entire thing, so you know what? Maybe he gets that. Maybe he gets that conviction against me, okay? I was being sneaky. I was planning on the person watching the video only reading it out loud, not being able to read it fast enough, not being able to rewind, not being able to pause. And also I told August to do this, okay? I said 5 seconds, okay? Not a second longer, because goddamn, they'll get us on that.
I will point out he couldn't get that screenshot off his screen fast enough because he knew it completely refuted, disputed, and destroyed his entire baseless line of attack against me.
You read that DM out loud when Connor sent you the message? Oh, yeah, I did read it. Yeah, sure.
You're changing the parameters of the debate, but that's fine. But to Stephen's point about, he wants to arrest people he said he wants to arrest people for burning the American flag. He said that in 2016, when he was running then. He said that for long periods of time in his life. And when he was in office, he did absolutely nothing to forward those goals. And you also say, this presidential immunity, it doesn't exist. People don't want the president to commit crimes and all that. Well, I happen to remember when Barack Obama actually murdered an American citizen abroad, Abdul al-Awlaki, and Eric Holder, his attorney general, are...
This is what Sean, this was the main thing, by the way, that made me, committed me to the blacklisting of him. The way that he phrases this, he's either so stupid that it's not worth talking to, or he's so dishonest that he's not worth talking to. I wonder if he'll include this in his video. When he conflates legal counsel working at the Office of Legal Counsel with a person's personal lawyer, that is an unfathomably stupid thing to do. I couldn't believe that he did this.
Our top law enforcement officer looked directly into the camera and he said due process doesn't necessarily mean judicial process. So unlike Bill Barr, who didn't side with Trump in that particular instance, Eric Holder absolutely did. And yet our government still stands, despite the fact that Obama not only did that for him, who, by the way, very likely he was a propagandist for al-Qaeda, very likely betrayed our country, although you could try somebody in absentia. Obama didn't bother to do that. But then again, his son, who was 16 years old, was also killed, an American citizen, in another country by Obama. And again, it was under the same justification that due process doesn't equal judicial process. The difference between your flag quote and Eric Holder and Obama's actions is that Trump was in office. He did nothing about the American flag, but what we saw from the Obama administration is...
Also, Trump didn't ask to do anything about... There's so much dishonesty here. Everything about what he's saying is so stupid. So there's so much dishonesty. So one, Trump asked Barr if something was legal, and then Barr said no, and Trump tried to do it anyway. Barr ended up quitting over that. Obama asked through the Attorney General, through the Office of Legal Counsel, if something was legal. The OLC said yes, and then Trump did it. So we're already fundamentally different in terms of what they pursued and what they didn't pursue. Also, secondly, Obama was asking a question about something that clearly fell within the purview of the office of the presidency, right? Do I have the authorization to make this legal strike? Donald Trump was asking, as a campaigning politician, to see if he could fake election fraud so that he could win his next election. Like, these things are so many worlds apart from each other. There's so many worlds apart from each other. The comparison is absurd.
Obama's actions is that Trump was in office. He did nothing about the American flag. But what we saw from the Obama administration is that they did claim and receive that power to kill Americans abroad that they deemed to be terrorists.
So right here in this part of the conversation, I brought up the fact that Obama unilaterally declared that he had the right to kill Americans abroad in non-combat zones that he decided were actually a threat. And I said,
unilaterally. Now, how could, I just don't want to be charitable at all. If I want to say Obama declared this unilaterally, right? If I was dealing with somebody that I felt like understood government better, or just wasn't a bad faith piece of shit, I would assume he means the executive branch decided this unilaterally. Is that what you mean, the executive? Because Obama clearly didn't, because he went to the DOJ and he asked if he could. That doesn't come off to me as deciding unilaterally. It seems like the exact opposite. He asked somebody else if he's legally allowed to do this.
Declared that he had the right to kill Americans abroad in non-combat zones that he decided were actually a threat. And I cited the case of Anwar al-Awlaki and his son Abdul Raham al-Awlaki. And Destiny, of course, decided to go into petty, stupid semantics by trying to make a distinction that didn't need to be made between Obama's White House lawyers and his personal lawyers, despite the fact that I never once at all, at any point in time, said that they were his personal lawyers.
When you talk about comparing Barack Obama, trying to see if he can assassinate an American citizen or not, the question was does the president have the ability to order certain types of military strikes or assassinations on U.S. citizens? The process that Obama went through wasn't going to the Supreme Court saying, I need criminal immunity in case I want to commit crimes. It was going to the Office of Legal Counsel, and it was seeing if he thought that the President of the United States had the authority to do this and it was in the legal clear. He never said, I'm beyond judicial review. He never asked for any amending to the Constitution, and he certainly didn't ask Congress to protect him and shield him from the liability of any of his actions. So no, it's not even remotely comparable. If Donald Trump would have
he just presumed that he had the ability to do that. Like he goes to when you talk about legal counsel.
What do you mean he presumed? If he presumed, why would he ask a lawyer? But what does presumed mean, Sean? What does presumed even mean? Do I ask that? What does presumed mean?
So those are his lawyers to come up with a justification.
No, you're dead wrong. You're completely wrong. You misunderstand completely the structure of government. The OLC.
Those are his lawyers to come up with a justification.
No, you're dead wrong.
Oh, and his lawyers to come up with the justification. They're not his lawyers. It's the Office of Legal Counsel.
Presume that he had the ability to do that. Like he goes to, when you talk about legal counsel, those are his lawyers to come up with a justification.
No, you're dead wrong. You're completely wrong. You misunderstand completely the structure of government. The OLC, the White House counsels, those are not his personal lawyers. Personal lawyers.
Personal lawyers, but they're his lawyers.
They're not his lawyers. They're the president of the United States lawyers.
Which
And
is
he
also
said,
Now, in the context of this particular conversation, Stephen said Obama never claimed that this was beyond judicial review, which I found to be very interesting for him to make that claim as a specific. And then he said, if he did, then why didn't somebody withstanding decide to bring a suit against Barack Obama?
His White House lawyers gave him whatever paper-thin justification he needed right from the jump, so he didn't have to get a second.
The justification was paper thin, justification right from the jump, so he didn't have to get another justification. What other justification would he need? What do you mean? He's the president. He believes he's authorized to do something. So the president checks with the DOJ's legal counsel, say, do I actually have the authorization to do this? And they said, yeah, we believe that legally you are in the clear here. And then he does it. What else is he supposed to do? What other process would you recommend, Sean?
Was paper thin, then why didn't anybody withstanding bring a case to the Supreme Court and have it overruled? Or why didn't Congress legislate and create a new statute to limit the powers of the executive?
Which are the two checks that it would be. The judicial branch didn't seem to check Obama, or that's my understanding, and the legislative branch didn't seem to check him on the decision either, is my understanding.
They felt like it was over the line.
Now, according to Destiny, if you bring up very specific details about something and then you turn out to be wrong, that means you're lying, and wouldn't you know it, Destiny is clearly, by that standard, lying right here.
Never said I'm beyond judicial review.
Because Barack Obama specifically claimed in his motion to dismiss a lawsuit, along with the fact that the person suing...
I hope to God... Oh man, I hope that he's not going to conflate. I think this is legal with I'm beyond judicial review. But I haven't read the particular case here. I could be incorrect in citing it, or incorrect in citing. I'm not really citing it. I'm just saying that Barack Obama didn't ask for broad criminal immunity, which is true, by the way.
Specifically claimed in his motion to dismiss a lawsuit, along with the fact that the person suing him, who was al-Awlaki's father, had no standing, that this was a non-judiciable political question. Now, this is specifically Barack Obama's office's motion to dismiss a lawsuit brought against him by Nasser al-Awlaki. Again, you can...
Defendants Barack H. Obama, President of the United States, Leon E. Panetta, Director of Central Intelligence, pursuant to the federal rules of civil procedure on the grounds that plaintiffs lack standing and that his claims require the court to decide non-justiciable political questions. The court should exercise the equitable discretion and not to grant the relief sought. In addition, plaintiff has no cause of action under the Alien Tort Statute. This is not asking for all for immunity or saying that all of your particular decisions are beyond judicial review. Also, this is a motion to dismiss. Also, again, if Obama presumed that all of these actions were beyond a court, why would he even bother asking his legal counsel?
Also, he's completely misrepresenting Obama's position here. Obama is saying that a certain
and also,
kind of
I'm so sorry. You can say everything you want to say. I'm sorry. Also, this is a civil suit, not a criminal suit as well. Okay, go for it. Sorry.
Correct. So number one, you guys were talking about criminal immunity and not any kind of civil immunity. So number one, already we're starting off incorrect. Number two, he's moving to dismiss for many reasons. One relates to standing, which of course wouldn't be an issue in a criminal case. Supposing the DOJ goes after Obama, because of course the Department of Justice, supposing that it's not in the right place, will have standing to bring the federal case against Obama, the hypothetical one. That's another reason. And then, yes, Obama was claiming that a certain question was non-justiciable, namely the following two narrow issues. Number one, the guy in this case was asking for a prospective ex ante injunction that basically would limit the government in how they would operate their kind of military activities. And so what Obama was asking for, it was saying, number one, you cannot grant this kind of prospective injunction that limits the military and their military activities. You can look backwards, but you can't look forwards. That's number one. And on the political question, non-justiciability, they're not saying you can't review this case. What they're saying is, specifically, you cannot review whether or not something is a war zone court. That the determination of something being a war zone is up to Congress and it's up to the president. The courts don't get to decide what is a war zone and what is not. But if you read the motion to dismiss, his lawyers clearly say that the father could have raised issues about whether or not his son actually was engaging in terrorism, actually was engaging in war. And so they're not saying that you can never litigate a case against the president for killing a citizen abroad. They're saying the courts cannot determine whether or not something is a war zone, that whether or not something is a war zone, that is within the complete discretion of the political branches, Congress and the president. That is completely different than what we're talking about in the criminal context. Yeah. He's not saying he's immune from any suit about killing a person, a citizen. He's saying the court can't determine what is and what's not a war zone. That's up to Congress and that's up to the president. So completely misrepresenting. It's just another case of him reading the first page of a motion to dismiss and not understanding how narrow the non-justiciability question is in a completely different context and not at all related to criminal immunity. So that's just another example.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Alawaki's father had no standing, that this was a non-judiciable political question. Now, this is specifically Barack Obama's office's motion to dismiss a lawsuit brought against him by Nasser Alawaki. Again, you can look it up for yourself, and it's on page 1. And right here it says, defendants Barack H. Obama, President of the United States, Leon E. Panetta, Director of Central Intelligence, and Robert M. Gates, Secretary of Defense, hereby move to dismiss the plaintiff's complaint pursuant to Federal Procedural Rule 12b-1 on the grounds that the plaintiff lacks standing and that his claim requires the court to decide non-judiciable political questions. So isn't that curious that Destiny specifically qualified? Why didn't anybody with standing bring a lawsuit against Barack Obama?
If the justification was paper thin, then why didn't anybody
the court to decide?
He doesn't even go into what the political question was, right? Your motion to dismiss. Why would you bring up on the grounds that plaintiffs lack standing and that his claims require the court to decide non-justiciable political questions? What if the complaint here was that Barack Obama's cock is too small for him to do this, and we think that only a president with a 12-inch dick should be allowed to assassinate American citizens, right? That part of your motion to dismiss might be, well, this is a non-justiciable political question. This is a non-justiciable question. The court shouldn't have any authority over how big the president's dick needs to be to launch a particular military strike. Why would you ever bring up a motion to dismiss without even referring to, ignoring the fact that we're not even talking about what's in the motion to dismiss? We're just going over page 1, sentence 1, okay? How could you not bring up what the complaint is actually about?
Non-judiciable political questions. So isn't that curious that Destiny specifically qualified? Why didn't anybody with standing bring a lawsuit against Barack Obama?
If the justification was paper thin, then why didn't anybody with standing bring a case to the Supreme Court?
When this case ultimately ended up being dismissed on the standing issue, and then he said Barack Obama never claimed that his power to unilaterally kill people anywhere in the world, including non-combat zones, which is exactly what Yemen was in 2010, was something that he did not say was beyond judicial review.
I never said I'm beyond judicial review.
When page 1 of the Obama administration's motion to dismiss says this is a non-judiciable political question.
What's the question? Motion to dismiss what? He doesn't even bring up what the suit is over. Or maybe he will in the next few minutes. He's got 10 minutes left in the video. You're not even bringing up what's in this motion or what's in the complaint. Does he know what a complaint is? Does he know what a motion to dismiss is? What the fuck?
Now, normally, I would be willing to grant Destiny the grace to say,
I don't need grace from you. You've never read a single legal document in your entire fucking life. What was his what is it like? Is it forensics? I don't even know what his degree is in. Holy shit.
That he didn't even bother to read page 1 of this motion to dismiss from the Obama administration, but by his own standards, he's a liar. He's lying about this, and deliberately so. Now, by the way, just to illustrate,
he does know these things. That's why he's a sneaky fuck. I'm not actually sure now. I don't know this point. Or maybe he does, I guess, but he knows his audience doesn't, so he can just get away with whatever lie possible, or
the absurdity of this particular argument from the Obama administration and what Destiny is willing to accept when it comes to Democrats is the fact that the reason there's no standing to sue is because Alawaki was killed, and you can't file a lawsuit if you're dead. If you'll remember, when indefinite detention came up to the courts and the Bush administration made the case that they could do this to enemy combatants, those people were actually alive, so they were able to sue. And under the court's ruling, which was that the Constitution goes where the U.S.
You think a wrongful death suit? So these don't exist in the entirety of the United States. There's no such thing as a wrongful death suit because you can't sue when you're dead?
Government goes, this was not allowed. I guess Obama's genius is that he just straight up murders these people, so that way they can't file a lawsuit, so that way you have a situation where the courts can never take up this case because
how is there ever a civil action for a wrongful death claim ever if this is the case? Like, this is just immediately on its face the most retarded fucking statement I've ever heard in my entire life. What? How does nobody have standing to do a wrongful death suit? Do these just never, all of these get dismissed? It's just a matter of if your lawyer is paying attention. Like, oh shit, we got hit up with another wrongful death suit. Oh, quick, remember, dismiss it because the guy's dead. Like, sorry.
Nobody has standing because they're dead. So yeah, in this particular case, I was 100% right. Destiny was 100% wrong. And again, under the standard that he would hold me to.
This can't be real.
Not himself to, he was 100% lying in this case, deliberately wrong. I brought in enough details to show that he should have been aware of what was alleged in this case, and then deliberately said something that was not true that is refutable on page 1 of Barack Obama's motion to dismiss this particular lawsuit.
What they're saying is that if Donald Trump were to come and be a dictator for 1 year, and then he were to be ousted from office, and then people were to, repair everything, and then we set ourselves back on the right course, they would say like, oh,
I wonder what the actual answer is. Who has standing to sue wrongful death in before it says, these actually don't ever happen in the United States. The surviving spouse of the deceased has the highest priority to file a wrongful death claim. The deceased's children, if there is no surviving spouse. What? Well, then it wasn't a threat, I guess. That's what they're. That's an.
Yeah, that's silly.
But hold on, wait. Do you acknowledge? You just said that's silly. You acknowledge that was their position.
Okay. Yeah.
No. Wait. Why are you saying? Okay, or sure. No. Yes. That was their position. Yes.
I'm about to use the N-word again.
That's fine. I don't care. I love the N-word.
Now, another lie from Steven is that I made the claim or made the argument that if Trump became a dictator for 1 year, then that would be perfectly fine as long as things went back to normal. In fact, I made the exact opposite argument, and this stems from him asking me if Hitler is a threat to democracy, in which I responded after being cut off a million times with a distinction from an election like the Hayes election, which was very wonky in how it happened, super questionable, resulted in the Hayes Compromise, which is a stain on American history, and of course, somebody actually overthrowing the system.
So it took a regime fall for democracy to return to Germany, and several decades of Western occupation in Germany for that democracy to be restored to Germany. Okay, so that's not what happened in the Rutherford B. Hayes case that Sean cited earlier, where this exact thing that you're claiming will overthrow democracy happened, and it resulted in democracy continuing on to today. Clearly, you agree that democracy exists today, otherwise you wouldn't be arguing that it's on the ballot.
Democracy in Germany exists today. You just proved Destiny's point. The idea that democracy is only threatened and permanently ended is stupid. Now you're moving goalposts again.
You're saying that it will happen without
if there's a decade.
Hey guys, editing Sean here, and I just realized that the reason why Destiny is misstating my position right here is because in order to perform for his audience, he started playing piano, which I'm sure you can hear on his stream or his version of the stream if that even exists. So he deliberately, in a bad faith way, ignored the answer to his question and then ascribes the position to me and my panelists that he didn't hear the refutation for. Also, this guy right here in the corner, he shows up at some point when Lauren does. He adds nothing of any
This guy here.
Intellectual value to the whole conversation. Just throwing that out there.
What does Lauren add to this conversation again, Sean?
If there's a decades-long gap in between democracy and dictatorship, that's something else.
Yeah, all right. So do you think that there's a meaningful difference, I'm just going to ask you, of having external governments overthrow your dictatorship and then install a democratic government in half your country, by the way, because the Soviet Union took over the other half, or at least, whatever. They split the country. But do you think there's a meaningful difference between that and then an election that's contested, that has this stupid electors thing, and then a corrupt compromise that's
contested and then has this stupid electors thing, lol.
The stains on American history, but then the next election functions as normal. Do you understand that there's a difference?
Okay, I understand there's a difference.
Now, the distinction that I make should be obvious, but I guess I'll explain it between the Hayes election or Bush v. Gore or any questionable election in American history, which is whether or not, despite the questionable nature of said election, the system functions as normal. This is obviously not applicable if somebody is a dictator for any period of time. So no, this would not be comparable to saying that if Trump was a dictator, acted as a dictator for a full year, then this would somehow not qualify as ending democracy. There is no interpretation of what I said in response to the Hayes versus Hitler question that could be read that way, yet Steven goes on and presents this as if it is actually my legitimate argument that I put forward. It is obviously not true. This is obviously yet another lie from Steven, but let's move on to another one.
Do you agree that the Civil War wasn't a threat to democracy? Because that wasn't another country, right?
It's a civil war. That's actually an interesting question.
No, it's not. They weren't another country. They weren't. They didn't have the legal right to secede just because you say
the fact that I was already, as soon as he says it, well, it's an interesting question, is it? So, whatever I prove happens as a result of Trump being elected, I've got to prove that it's going to be more of a threat to democracy than the Civil War? What the fuck?
Democracy, if these people wanted to secede, and then they ended up going to war with the other half of the country.
Nope. It was another country. You define it as external country.
A conflict from within the country about whether or not you could break apart. That's actually an interesting question.
No, it's not. Hold on. No, it's very easy to solve. We came back immediately after.
So Steven got really mad right here that I said it was an interesting question whether or not the Civil War counts as a threat to democracy, as in ending our current system of government. But the fact of the matter is, I thought it was an interesting question. This was a compliment to him because it was something that I did not consider in the context of the
Okay.
framework that I was describing. Now, the reason I thought this was an interesting question is because the southern states wanted to leave the Union and form their own new confederacy. By contrast, the Union government could have maintained power without the southern states. So the question is a reduction in the size of the Union an inherent threat to the Union? Could the system not function without those southern states? And again, this is still an interesting question. Now, what I was also thinking about is all the various places that want to break away from a larger structure, and if I would consider that a threat to democracy if those people were willing to do so. So, of course, we had referendums on leaving the Soviet Union. Now, the Soviet Union was an authoritarian government, so you might say that's different, but we also have the Catalonian people trying to leave Spain. And yes, while it is objectively a threat to Spain if they were to leave, does that mean it's undemocratic for them to do so, and it would ruin the democracy in Spain if they were allowed to do so? I also brought up again on Twitter the example of the Irish trying to separate, which ultimately they ended up doing. And the reason I brought up these three examples on Twitter, and would have brought up these three examples had I actually been able to speak without Destiny raging out like an insane maniac, is because they are three different sets of facts, all based on the premise of leaving your larger governing structure, and one of them was actually successful. By the way, the Irish one actually involved...
Okay, I'm good. Holy shit.